Call to order the meeting of Rockford Area Schools Independent School District 883 Board of Education dated October 21st, 2019 with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone, and we will start with board roll call. Brady Anderson.
Here.
Kevin Campbell.
Here.
Eric Gordy.
Here.
Jessica Johnson.
Here.
Beth Preska.
Here.
Amy Edwards. Here. We have a quorum of the board. At this time, I will ask for an approval of our agenda.
Are you gonna add that one?
What?
Are you gonna add that one at the end?
Well, that's
Okay.
what I'm calling for.
Okay.
Motion for that and or discussion about our agenda.
Or do we approve? Okay.
No?
Okay. I would like to request an addition to the agenda following item 10, or no, it's 11. Where am I at? Help me out here. It's 11,
Yep.
following B.
Great.
Adding in their IB advisory board representative from the school board. And I bring that to the board's attention just after going on the IB training. I think it'd be very beneficial to have a board member as part of that team.
Okay. So that's a request to add an agenda item of 11C, it would be, and then switching the rest
C
to
to
D
D.
on. Any other potential modifications to the agenda this evening? All right, with that, I have a request to modify the agenda as noted by Jessica. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the additional item to 11C and moving to D.
Great. I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any further comment?
Great idea.
Comment. Pending no further comments, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Agenda is updated and modified. Thank you. All right, moving on through our agenda. Stuck. Hold on.
Recognition.
Yep, just was stuck.
Sure.
All right, so for recognition this evening prepared by the superintendent's office is the Reams Reader. Please recognize first grade student Abrielle Marks for working so hard to become a good reader. Her extra efforts have been outstanding. Our second recognition goes to the RMS CES cycling team, and it says, kudos to the entire team of the Rockford School cycling team. It has been a cold, wet fall to be out racing on the trails. RMS CES would like to recognize its students on the team this year. Edison Binsfield, Oliver Sharp, Robbie Ferding, Hadelin Barkheim, Caden Ellos, Landon Stageberg, Micah Linna, Brady Olson, Ryan Schumann, and Sam Heike. This team has worked hard to create and keep a presence in their sport. Thank you for your hard work and for making the Rockford name mean great things. Our next recognition is our Best Prep Educational Forum. Rockford High School would like to recognize junior Anna Darling Eva for representing Rockford at this year's Educational Forum sponsored by Best Prep. The event was held at St. Paul River Center on Monday, October 2nd, 2019. The event featured best-selling author Thomas Friedman. Ann Darling met the world-renowned author, the mayor of St. Paul, Melvin Carter, and a score of other influential attendees. Last summer, Ann Darling attended a week-long business and career development camp with students across the state. It was this experience that allowed her to be involved in the invited to the Educational Forum. Wow, that's pretty cool. And soccer shout-out. Senior Miguel Abera Bucio, thank you, has been named All-State for boys soccer. On Sunday, October 20th, at the boys soccer all-state banquet, our own Miguel Ibarra Bucio was named to the 2019 all-state first team. Miguel will be playing in the all-state game on November 6th. Congratulations, Miguel.
That's awesome.
Wow. And that is the recognition as prepared. Any questions or comments? Great. We'll move on to our next agenda item. And our next agenda item is our public comment section of the board meeting. And at this point in time, what happens, we've got a lot of public comment this evening, and I'm going to read a statement for everyone that's participating in public comment. We do this each month. So public comment at each regular school board meeting is an opportunity for residents of the Rockford Area School District to address the school board. After being recognized by the chair, each individual will identify themselves and the group they represent, if any. To ensure that all individuals have a chance to speak, speakers will be limited to one 3-minute presentation. The public comment portion of the regular school board meeting is not a time to debate an issue, but for the school board to hear comments from community members. The Minnesota Government Data Practices Act prohibits comment about specific student matters even without naming the student in open forum. This includes the public comment portion of a school board meeting. The board respects and values input on student matters, but when it relates to a specific student or a specific student matter, such input must be heard by the appropriate personnel, such as the building principal or superintendent, and not during an open meeting of the board. And I just want to make sure that we read that and we read it out loud every month. So with that, I will call Deb Milo. Hi, Deb.
Hello. All right. My name, excuse me, is Deb Milo. Many of you know that I'm a former educator at Rockford. I taught in the district for almost 20 years. A little over a year ago, I decided to make a career change. I'm now a private reading tutor helping dyslexic and struggling readers using an Orton-Gillingham structured literacy program. I'm here today because it's Dyslexia Awareness Month, and I want to share some important information with you about the new Minnesota statutes that are related to dyslexia. I know firsthand how hard our Rockford teachers work to help students learn how to read, write, and spell. Even though teachers and staff members are working tirelessly, there are still students that are not reading at grade level. Many of these students may have signs and symptoms of dyslexia and need specialized interventions and programs to learn to read. I'm here today to share the newest dyslexia laws that were implemented to help these students get the correct interventions. These laws will also help the educators learn more about dyslexia and the information they need to help these struggling readers. There are 5 Minnesota statutes that relate to dyslexia. I'm going to summarize them quickly because we don't have enough time to read them all, but I have copies in the back of the green sheets, green for Rockford, of all the statutes so you can read them yourself. The first statute is the dyslexia definition. This is the definition used by the International Dyslexia Association, and this definition makes sure we're all using the same verbiage, and that was passed in 2015. The second statute was in 2016 is the screening. Each school district must identify before the end of kindergarten, grade 1, and grade 2 all students who are not reading at grade level. Students identified as not reading at grade level by the end of kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2 must be screened in a locally determined manner for characteristics of dyslexia. And there's a note on that law that dyslexia screening also required in grades 3 and up, unless a different reason for the reading difficulty has been identified. There's an updated version on that in 2019 that changed the verbiage to must identify. The third statute was passed in 2017. It required the MDE to employ a dyslexia specialist, and her name is Dr. Amy Schulting. She is there to guide and help schools navigate these laws and to help them with the resources and information they need. The fourth statute was also passed in 2017. After the district screens and identifies students with characteristics of dyslexia, those students must be provided with alternate instruction that is multisensory, systematic, sequential, cumulative, and explicit. This is called a structured literacy approach. The fifth statute is teacher preparation programs for new teachers. This was passed in 2019 and will help new teachers learn the symptoms of dyslexia, learn about resources available, and learn about evidence-based instructional strategies, including structured literacy. In conclusion, reading is a fundamental life skill that all people need to succeed in the classroom and beyond. You have the power to help these struggling readers. Please take the time to learn more about dyslexia and the appropriate interventions to help these students using the resources the MDE has provided on their dyslexia webpage. The laws were implemented to help students in elementary, middle, and high school that are struggling to read at grade level. They are counting on you to know why they struggle and how you can help them. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Thank you, thank you. Next is Colin Kimball.
Hello board, thank you for having me. Colin Kimball, my topic is struggling readers in middle school. Our kids and teenagers have now been living with differences long enough to have built a variety of coping mechanisms. We see some of these kids hidden in our classrooms. They look like the talkative one, the comedian, the hyper kid, the angry kid, the shy kid that doesn't talk that much, the bully. You should begin to recognize these traits at times as a call for help. They may be thinking, I'm sick and tired of always being wrong. I just don't understand. I'm overwhelmed. I need help. Kids, as we all know, can be very hard on each other. It's easier to stand out in any other character trait than to be the stupid kid, as many dyslexics have experienced in one way or another. But they are far from stupid. They are likely to be more proficient with the right side of their brain. They are macro thinkers. They are artists. They are leaders. They can see past layers and seek out the root cause. They are natural problem solvers and have a deep sense of empathy. When given the educational and emotional support early and often, their unique abilities can form adults that can change the world. We can never assume that as they grow older, they will grow out of it, or that they don't need the same amount of emotional support. Interventions. We seem to make these issues more complicated than they have to be. Generally speaking, our culture expects our kids to become independent readers by 3rd or 4th grade. That is not the case for the dyslexic 5%. They need continued help. The better we can teach our kids to read, the better chance they have to become productive members of society. We have to intervene at all levels of education. If they need help, it's our responsibility to provide it to them. Let's make Rockford a culture of no readers left behind. They need specialized teaching methods, group support. They need to be celebrated for their differences, shown to be known they are not alone. In this day and age, our interventions for our middle schoolers need to include the use of technology, e-readers and tablets. Common in most homes and already utilized by many dyslexic kids, e-readers have become commonplace tool in many surrounding communities. They come with many built-in features helping kids to read, spell, and take notes in different ways. Smart pens. Smart pens offers solution to writing. A smart pen comes with a built-in computer that records what is heard while you are talking. Also allows students to scan and text and will have it read back to them or have it downloaded on another device via Bluetooth. We need to begin to integrate tools like these into our struggling readers' lives. Let's allow and encourage these types of devices in our classroom. We as a community will find a way to get the needed technology in the hands of the 5% that are greatly in need. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next, I have Natalie Kimball.
Hello, my name is Natalie Kimball. I am a parent to 4 Rockford students. I am dyslexic. What is dyslexia? Dyslexia means a specific learning disability that is neurological in origin, is characterized by difficulties with accurate or fluid recognition of words by poor spelling and decoding abilities. Dyslexia is the most common learning disability. 1 in 5 people are dyslexic. About 70 to 80% of children who are placed in special education for learning disabilities are dyslexic. As you probably know, autism affects 1 in 52 kids. That is 2%. What you might not know is dyslexia affects 1 in 5 kids, 20% of students in our district. This means that in every classroom, kindergarten to 12th grade, sits 3 to 5 who have dyslexia. Dyslexia is real. Congress also agrees when they included dyslexia under their special education eligibility category of specific learning disability back in 1975. Our concern tonight is that these bright children are marginalized despite the research and the facts. They are held back and asked to change when instruction is what needs to change. They are denied their potential due to schools' lack of education in the area of dyslexia. Imagine being a smart kid sitting in class day after day, failing day after day, despite knowing you're smart. Imagine being told to work harder, focus, try harder. Imagine that you know you have dyslexia, and yet you are told it doesn't exist. Every day you are told to be more motivated. As a student who fails day after day and continues to try is not lacking in motivation. When 20% of school districts struggles to read and spell because of dyslexia and the district refuses to respond with an appropriate intervention, they fail not only to provide FAPE on a regular basis, but they are violating the civil rights to an appropriate education. This becomes a civil rights issue. I would like to ensure that if our schools fought as hard with those with dyslexia as they do against it, we would have a completely different, substantially less impacted special education system. A quote from a dyslexia advocate and researcher, Dr. Sally Shaywitz, "We do not have a knowledge gap, we have an action gap." So I ask you, please start seeing dyslexia. Support our kids, our teachers, and their right to a proper education. We want nothing more to see our students and teachers succeed. We ask for Rockford schools to support for all dyslexia in all of our schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Natalie. Next, I have Teresa. You're going to have to help me with how to say your last name.
Sure. It's Vagert.
It's Vagert.
Yep.
Thank you.
So good evening. My name is Teresa Vagert. So I would like to talk about early intervention. Early evaluation should be done in young children before even the problem turns into reading failure. Screening tests and assessments developed by researchers for those purposes should be used with all children in school beginning in kindergarten to locate those who are at risk for reading difficulty. Preventative intervention should begin immediately even if dyslexia is suspected without a diagnosis. How the child responds to supplementary instruction will help determine if more specialized program is necessary. Intervention is most effective when it occurs as early as first grade. When children at risk for reading failure and are identified early and are provided with the systematic, explicit, and intensive instruction as the Orton-Gillingham curriculum, they can learn to read at an average or above grade level. Ultimately, as documented in research, this could reduce the percentage of children reading below the basic level in fourth grade from 38% to 6% or less. Dyslexia is a neurobiological disorder, and research has shown that brain plasticity decreases through childhood. It takes 4 times as long to intervene with a fourth grader as it does with a kindergartner. Because of the brain development and the increase in content the student has to learn in order to grow. Children at risk for reading failure can be readily identified even before kindergarten. Extensive evidence supports the fact that early intervention is critical. Struggling readers who do not receive any interventions fall further behind their peers. Psychological and clinical implications of poor reading development can be prevented and at least minimized if we identify and intervene as early as possible. With early intervention, many of the children at risk for dyslexia can become skilled readers. In fact, research shows that 70% of at-risk children who receive educational intervention in kindergarten become proficient readers. I think that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Steve, same or different?
Ooh, which one?
Steve Cox.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. And then I see what you have written, so again, I cannot
I
have any
wasn't gonna
connection.
name any, just generically.
Very good.
I get what you're saying.
Thank you.
The mainstream education system we have in Rockford works for the majority of the kids. There are students that go through the halls from kindergarten all the way through graduation, and it works for them. However, there's a portion of children that have learning disabilities that are going through this system, and I don't believe that they are getting the help that they should be getting through this Rockford education system. Some kids can go through kindergarten, first, second, third grade, and end up in fifth grade, and then find out that they either can't finish the alphabet or have not been flagged for being high risk, even though some parents are diligent about asking the questions every year. There are still kids that are going to fall through the cracks. So what I think that's going to end up happening is you're going to have parents leave the district in the short term if there's not any changes made. Long term, if you make the changes, you'll probably end up saving a lot of families to stay in the district. But short term, the parents just really don't have an alternative to stay and not get the help that they would require. Other schools, surrounding schools, they have programs in place for if the kids are flagged as high risk. They have an organized structure that the children can go through for extra reading, extra time for extra assessment. Then if there's an actual diagnosis for dyslexia, then there's an extra plan on top of that. Whereas in Rockford, I don't believe that there is such a plan. There is an assessment that's made, and then there's a determination that can be made, but there isn't any structured plan. So for some parents, they may elect to leave the district because of this shortcoming, and it's nothing personal. What works for most of the kids, even siblings that have another sibling that's got a learning disability, if it works for them, it's not always going to work for everybody else. But I'm just letting you know what alternatives parents will have to make.
And with that, thank you for all of the public comment this evening. With that, that closes our public comment section. Moving on to our next agenda item, that is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion related to our consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
What's the motion? To approve it?
To approve it, sorry. I'll make a motion to approve it.
First, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a first and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion related to the agenda, or the consent agenda? No further discussion. I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Consent agenda passes. Our next agenda item is related to an interim leadership position, temporary interim leadership position for the district. In the consent agenda, you saw that Superintendent Durand is on a leave of absence, and pursuant to Minnesota statute, because we have a secondary school, we are required as a board to nominate or to implement a temporary interim superintendent to serve in those duties. With that being said, we do have an internal leader that does have the licensure and expertise to serve in this temporary interim role. That's Dr. Rhonda Dean. She has her superintendent's license, and that is what I would recommend that we consider. In your packet is her CV and all of that. in order to appoint a temporary interim superintendent, and again, that's to carry on the business matters of the district, it does require board action. So that would require this board to nominate, put a motion on the table, second, and then a vote.
Very good. I will make a motion to approve Rhonda Dean as interim superintendent in the absence of Mr. Durant.
And that would be a temporary superintendent.
Superintendent, correct.
Yep.
Temporary interim superintendent. Gotta get all the words out.
Great. I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Great. So at this point in time, since pending no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Unanimously carries. Second matter within this agenda is we will need to place a contract in place in order to allow, or in order to appropriately recognize, I mean, we've just recognized Dr. Dean as the interim superintendent, but to make the matters via contract. So what I would recommend or suggest to this board for consideration is that our negotiations committee works through those details as per standard with any other contract. And our negotiations committee is Jessica, Eric, and Kevin. With that, it would take a motion to do that. But go ahead.
So I will make a motion that we proceed with the negotiations committee to work out the terms of the temporary interim superintendent.
Great.
Mouthful.
I know, it's a lot.
Put that on a business card.
Yeah, right. Okay. I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Great. I have a first and a second. Any further discussion related to that? Pending no further discussion, I will call for a vote of the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. The third matter of business that I do want to put in front of you in your board folder, there is a draft letter because it is so important that our staff be communicated about this temporary interim superintendent role that Dr. Dean will be fulfilling. And in your packet is a draft letter that we would like to send out to, or that we would like to consider sending out to the staff tonight, or at latest first thing in the morning. Do you want to take a moment to read it?
I've already read it.
You read it? You read it?
Read it.
Read it? All right. Anybody have any changes to that letter? Recommended changes? The one question that I have is how would you like this addressed? Would you like it addressed from me as the board chair or the six of us as the Board of Education? And I'm open to whatever works.
Go ahead, you go. I yield my time.
We'll see if we're going to say the same thing. I would say from the Board of Education, because it's a decision that we all just
Stand in unity.
made the last second here, so
Great.
that's my recommendation.
Wonderful. So I don't think that requires like a motion or anything like that, but what I'm seeing in the room is, Jessica?
I
Yes?
feel
Same? Eric?
Very good.
Beth?
good. I agree.
All right, Kevin, perfect. So Kathy, you have a draft copy of the letter, so if you would be able to send it out to the staff from the entire Board of Education, that would be fantastic.
Okey-doke.
All right, great. And at this time, I would like to call Dr. Rhonda Dean up to, don't send it quite yet, bring Dr. Rhonda Dean up to the podium. Dr. Dean, are you willing to serve in this temporary interim capacity?
am humbled and honored to serve the Rockford community.
Thank you. So with that, I will ask you to please have a seat at the table. Thank you. All right. So,
Ron, you have two S's here that are gonna start to cry any minute.
Any minute.
It's one here.
I know. So they're strategically positioned. All right. So moving on to our next agenda item. Brenda, yes, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to serve in this temporary interim capacity. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Our next agenda item is actually you in your principal's report. Would you like to step back up to the podium and give us your principal's report, or how?
You want to start in the same order?
Oh, no, yeah, geez. Brenda, please come up.
We're just mixing it up.
We're all a little. Because Kevin whispered to me, he got me off track. So, Brenda.
I was trying to rain on my parade.
Thank you.
My highlighted item tonight is, if you recall last year, Sherry Weber came and talked with you about being the regional teacher leader, and she had received that honor, and we were very excited about that. She opened her classroom last year because we also became a demonstration school, and opened her classroom last year, and we opened our school to a group of art teachers who came to watch her. That will be happening again for a second time tomorrow. They will be here right away in the morning and do some staff development with our entire staff. So as we look, 16 years it is, I believe now, that we've been an arts magnet school. The leadership and the work continues, the training continues, the staff development continues. We have amazing partnerships with some of these folks, and like I said, they're very excited to come. They're spending the entire day with us tomorrow. There will be about 10 to 12 art teachers that will come in, and Purpose Center will be here in the morning, and they'll work with us as a staff. And so they give us another tool for our toolbox, and something that we can take back into the classroom, and then they'll spend time with Sherry. I give them a building tour, we have lunch, and then we spend the afternoon and we really dig into the new arts standards and talk about how that affects us within our buildings. So it was timely that we obviously had this meeting tonight, because tomorrow we're happening, and we're very excited to move forward in that in the morning right away. So big day at Reams tomorrow, and again, I want to really highlight Sherry Weber. I'm so proud of her work, and she is a person who just silently does her work, and yet it is beautiful and amazing, and what she gets out of kids, I've never seen an art teacher get out of kids, and that's pretty impressive. And she is a leader in her own right, and brings that forth to the staff in many ways. So we're really excited for tomorrow.
Great. Any questions for Brenda? Thank you.
Yeah,
It is, I mean, honestly, it is an amazing program, and the art and just the way that all goes at the elementary school is fantastic. So thank you for highlighting that this month.
Thank you.
It's great. Yep. All right, next, Bobby. Good evening.
For you, if you don't mind. Look at
No,
I don't think
we don't mind.
I'm gonna take a complete
Wait.
bar.
Look at you.
You're gonna give me a step stool or.
Nice.
Good evening, everybody. So I have a couple of really big, important events coming up. Probably the biggest that we have is the STEM Showcase, so mark your calendars for that. We'd love that if you came out and spent some time with us that night. That's where our kids really show off what they're doing, lots of different ways. I've also got a different route with what I'm presenting for you this evening. I wanted us to take a couple minutes and really highlight what the staff at the middle school is doing. This is what's called a template for power standards, and this is actually an electronic form. It's a Google form that my staff is working on. They're probably not hugely happy with me right now because this is a very heavy lift, and I'm going to tell you why. We do this electronically because if you've heard the term curriculum map, usually what happens is teachers work super hard and fill them out, and they get printed out and put in a binder and put on a shelf, and that's pretty much where they sit. If you do these things electronically, anybody who's in the school can get a copy, specifically EL teachers, right, special ed teachers, so that we can see what our colleagues are doing. Not only that, but so that we can pre-teach kids, and I'll show you some examples of that. And so how this works is my staff is working to identify power standards, those standards that have to be in place and kids have to master to do well moving forward. So they're in the process this year of picking those standards. The other thing that's been really fun, okay, if you're a principal, it's fun, I suppose, about this is one of my goals is to merge the PLC process in this district with the work that the middle school is doing, and so that we streamline the work, really focus in one direction. It's not add on for our teaching staff, but it becomes the one, focus. So once a power standard is determined, and that could be a state standard, could also be a national standard. Our music teachers, our phy-ed teachers quite often use national standards. Could be an ISTE standard, an instructional technology standard. A lot of our teachers use that if they're teaching technology to kids. So they write the standard. I was a 7th grade language arts teacher, do conventions, mastery of conventions of the English language, right, in speaking and in writing. And so you write out all of the pieces of the standard, and then you do the little identification, reminds me of elementary school. Circle the nouns, bracket the verbs, right? But we're really looking at concepts, skills, and criteria. We really want to unpack, so to speak, what the standard is saying. So that's the first page. The second page at the top, you'll notice that first number 1 where it says, what do we want students to know and be able to do? Well, in PLC work, professional learning communities, that work is driven by 4 questions. The first question is, what do we want students to know and be able to do? That's really how you focus the work in a PLC. So that's how I have formulated this work. What do we want kids to know and be able to do? So we take the information that we've gained from the standard and we chart it on this form, right? So this is just a basic checklist for each standard. Okay, so one of these gets completed electronically for each standard. What my staff is doing this year is as they're teaching, they're adding this information. So these things are starting to pop up electronically in my Google Drive, which is super impressive, I think, and fun. And when they're all done, someone I know will get a copy of them, right? So they're living documents. So then the bottom of this second page, the language of instruction, this is a huge piece because this is where we often lose kids, and that's the vocabulary. And so if everybody has access to these documents for every class, then I can pick these up and say, okay, students who struggle, here's the vocabulary words, let's learn these before you go to class, right? And so then they're coming in with a jump start on that class. Again, sorry if I'm going super fast, but the last column on this page is the depth of knowledge. That was the chart on the front. This is going to tie in nicely to IB, right? Because we have to prepare kids to go to an IB high school. So this is where we're going to come back and backfill with IB stuff afterward. Okay, I don't want to kill my teachers. Pass that on. The third page, I can statements. These are learning targets, right? And so every single skill becomes, in student language, what does the student have to be able to do? So a kid who walks out of any classroom on any day should be able to say, well, our learning target today was mastery of conventions. Okay, today we did pronouns or whatever, right? And so then we have these electronically. Again, we keep them year to year, super easy to tweak, right? And so the document just keeps improving year after year, if that makes sense to you. And there's directions all over this thing. So, what was that again? Page 4, very important page. Again, this is, how are we going to know here? What's happening? So the big ideas, and I love how this says main ideas, the conclusions, but what it says on the top is, what do I expect my students to tell me when they conceptually or deeply understand the concepts? What am I going to hear kids say when they really know what they're talking about, right? So having a teacher sit down and purposely name these things, right? That helps them begin with the end in mind. I know my kid has to be able to show me this. How am I going to get them there? Right? It's just backward mapping. That's old school. The essential questions, scripting questions for kids, open-ended questions in advance for kids, right? And again, being able to teach these year after year. Common misconceptions. For me, this would have been, okay, what do kids always mix up? Proper nouns, pronouns, always, right? So you note that, so you can head that off in advance for kids, so that makes us more efficient. It's a long document. Page 5. Second question, PLC question. How do we know they know it? Right? Okay, we know what we want kids to learn, what we want them to be able to do. This fifth page is all about assessing, right? Classwork. What classwork? And then you'll see in each box, create links here. So this is where the teachers create electronic links of the actual work the kids are doing, of the common resources, right? Well, this is a worksheet from so-and-so, they link it here. This is my formative assessment, they link it here. And then the summatives. And we are gonna actually, down the road, my staff is gonna write summatives because I don't believe a teacher I think that every teacher should write tests because you don't know what you're asking kids to do until you go through the act of writing test questions and learning how to write good test questions. So then you look at the results, right? And you say, okay, everybody got number 4 wrong then because they were a really bad question, right? It wasn't a clear question. I wasn't getting to exactly what the kid needed to know. That's one reason, but there's a lot of ways to write a bad test question. Page 6, the third question. Okay, so what are we going to do if the kids don't know it? We've decided what we're going to teach them. We've decided how we're going to know, and what if they can't do it? Well, that's remediation, right? What is required to fix what they don't know? First of all, what is it that they don't know? How are we going to add more time, add more instruction so they do know it? And then the last question is, what if they already know it? Because I guarantee you have both these kids in a classroom. And so teachers have to be prepared in advance. Okay, I'm going to have a group of kids that have to do this, while I take these kids to do this, right? And then we're almost done. Hang with me. Page 7. This is just the top box of, hey, what can I do STEM related, right? We're a STEM school. Or how can I get kids outside? Or what's something else I have to remember? And then I have a little calendar there, and then, of course, the last page is just blank, because who doesn't need a blank page? But the thing to remember is, this is happening while my staff is teaching, because they don't have time to do this. And so this is why I always say that we're in a rough draft year. We're in a rough draft year, because if we can sit down and add things as we're doing it, at the end of the year, they're going to have documents 3/4 of the way done, right? And then next year, they're going to be able to look at it and add things, and then they bring it to their PLC, and then they say, okay, what happens in 5th grade, and then in 6th grade, and then in 7th grade, and that's vertical alignment, right? And then it just gets, that's how everything is put in place. So we started with this big umbrella of grading, because grading is how we communicate what kids know. We had to have a common language, because we did not, right? So then it's standards, then it's assessment, right? How do we really know they can do it? Formatives first, because you have to be able to quickly gauge what kids know. That's what I talked about last time, right? And bring it back to your teaching. And so that's what they're doing right now. Summatives are next. Then we'll probably start over, I don't know. But anyway, I wanted to bring academically what we're doing at the middle school. And again, a very heavy lift, but we got all year. I love it. That's me, sorry.
Jessica.
Bobby, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this to the board. I really enjoy learning about the things that we're doing instructionally in our classrooms, in the buildings. So thank you for being such a great instructional leader in our middle school. I see this as being extremely beneficial.
Thanks.
Beth.
And again, I reiterate what Jessica said, and you are singing my song. Like, this is right up my alley.
Well, it's best practice. I mean,
yes, and so I can't wait to see where it leads to, and then we'll have some more data to bring back and read. It's an ongoing process, I realize, and it's just exciting me. Us research geeks can really dig into this stuff, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Eric?
Always the last one, right?
Well, not yet. You never
I know.
No, we got
I'm
Brady's
just
in over
slow. I'm all right with that. You have a hard task because you have grade level department teams of one, right?
Yep.
So
Everybody's
are you
a single
their own island? Well, but you have 5 through 8. Are you working PLC-wise, grade across, and are they unpacking together, like focusing I mean, how are you structuring the work right now in the PLC?
Well, the beautiful thing is that everybody's in a completely different place.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not only that everybody's a singleton, but everybody has a different level of comfort. And I have 2 grade levels that are doing standards-based grading and 2 levels that are not. And so that's gonna come to a head at the end of the school year as well, because of what's happening at the high school with grading, right, and how they're gonna address it. So that's 1. 2, yeah, in the PLCs, that's exactly what's happening. I have some departments that can easily, these are the power standards, no problem. Language arts, it's like I've asked them to decapitate their children, right? And it's not, but I can't, everything's important equally. No, it really isn't, because everything in language arts is the same thing year after year after year, right? And someone has to take mastery of it, and then somebody else takes mastery of something else, and then by the time they're done with middle school, they've mastered the vast majority of it. And we're all happy about it, right? But yes, so the end result is to have them all in the same place at the same time. It's not going to happen neatly or immediately, but yeah.
And the embracement of your science teachers must be happy with the science standards that came through from the state.
I'm blessed to have an amazing staff, and I say that a lot, but it's going to require 2 grade level teachers to completely flip-flop everything they do. That's the long and short of it. And then it'll be a 3-year implementation, because we can't just skip a year of science.
Right.
And so, yeah, we have it all mapped. We will be, and the state of Minnesota said, well, here's the thing you should follow. We plan to be a year ahead of that, just because I like to be a year ahead. When they say, hey, this is the drop dead point, we'll be there already. We'll have a year of practice in before that.
You can't say Common Core, right?
Yes, exactly.
Or ISTA.
Great. Any further questions for Bobby? Thank you.
Thank you.
Rhonda, high school principals report.
Clear my throat here. I went camping over MEA with my grandkids overnight in a tent.
Oh dear.
2 nights. I did that as a grandma. So my throat is a little sore here. Appreciate what Bobby just reported out, because it does align with where the high school is and where we're going in terms of grading, in terms of IB, in terms of she's identifying them as power standards, but it so aligns with where the high school is moving as we implement IB. But I'm going to step back a little bit and do a little lighthearted principal's report about the high school. We've had homecoming since our last meeting, and so I want to start with that. By all accounts, homecoming week was a huge success this year. The week, of course, started with coronation, where Jack Brinkleson, and I'll talk a little bit about Jack in just a moment, and Carly Jensen, they were crowned, of course, homecoming king and queen. Throughout the week, we had the theme weeks, theme days, which were super fun this year. Most of the students and most of the staff were involved this year. And then due to inclement weather on that Wednesday, when we usually have the Powder Puff game, we had to postpone that till Friday. But we did do the Traveling Pep Fest, which was my first experience with that model. And I didn't know that was a thing. It's a good thing. And I appreciate my colleagues back here, Bobby and Brenda, for adjusting their schedules. Anytime we adjust the daily schedule, it messes with preps, it messes with the students' routine, it messes with the staff's routine, and to have everyone do that so that the kids can have that experience, it takes effort. It just doesn't happen. So I appreciate my colleagues back here for allowing the high school kids to come over and energize our younger kids around homecoming. And then the week concluded with a homecoming dance, and we had 229 kids at the dance.
Wow.
Almost half the student body attended our homecoming dance, which I understand is way up from years past. And from what I heard from the kids, they had a great time. Hopefully your kids came home and said that they had a great time. So again, just a really good week. Moving on to our young man who was diagnosed with cancer at the beginning of the year. you know, the story is not, I mean, it is about the young man, but it's really about this community and how we have embraced him. From the very beginning, starting, 1st of September, folks just started rallying around him. The staff, the high school staff, actually the week before homecoming, which would have been then mid-September, we did his favorite color is yellow, and so we did a staff picture for Jack. The coaches have, and I wish Dan Pratt was here, but the coaches have an event called Tackle Cancer, and they designate a specific game where they encourage the participants and the players and the fans to wear pink. Well, because yellow is Jack's favorite color, that particular game, which was actually the Friday before our homecoming, or 2 weeks before homecoming Friday, the kids wore pink and yellow, of course, for Jack. During the Traveling Pep Fest, we went over to the middle school, and the middle school students, they knew Jack was going to be there. They wore yellow. It was just quite the scene. Of course, Fox 9 came out, and they did a story on Jack and just again about the community and our outpouring of love and affection for him. The Crow River newspaper did an article. He's all over social media in a good way. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, our weekly bulletins have lifted him up. And the one that got me the most, I mean, all this stuff is going on since the beginning of the year. But 2 weeks ago, our custodial staff got together, and they did this on their own. One of our employees, Corey Meadows, he got together with all the engineers, all the maintenance guys. They put together their funds, and they purchased for Jack it's like a little track bag or backpack called One Less Wire. And it's a nonprofit that was created by a Delano student who actually graduated last year. So he's a Delano grad who is a recovering cancer patient, but he created this nonprofit called One Less Wire, and the whole story behind it is when you're going through treatment and you're in that type of situation, you got all these wires connected to you. And so in his little backpack, the number one item in there is a pair of Beats earbuds, which are pricey, by the way. But it was just, for him, it's one less wire. Why the patient is going through chemo or whatever they're doing. Just one less wire. But in that pack, in addition to the earbuds, there was a $50 gift cards for Grubhub, so he could have something delivered to the hospital so he wouldn't have to eat hospital food. But it was just so sweet. And the custodial staff, they did it on their own. They passed the bucket around, and Corey actually reached out to the Delano student and invited him here. And the young man came, I mean, he's graduated, but he not only did he come back to high school, but he came to Rockford.
That's hard for Delano.
Right? But he came back to Rockford, and so he was here, and he actually presented his bag to Jack, and it was just a great moment. So just, that could have been my recognition for today, but just, yeah, again, the story is more about really, I mean, Jack is an amazing young man, but the way this community is surrounding him has just been phenomenal. And then the last thing that I wanted to share with you is the I-teams. It's emotional poverty. The three I-teams, the I-teams are kind of the triage teams that each building has. The I-team usually consists of the counselor at the high school here. I know we have the therapist, the school nurse, maybe one or two classroom teachers. But when students are demonstrating that they're struggling, and whether that's attendance or mental health issues or things are going on at home, classroom teachers are noticing that there's something going on with the student. There's a referral made to the building I-team. And so that's what the I-team is. But just this past, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks, the I-teams from the 3 buildings participated in an emotional poverty workshop. and it was an overview of what emotional poverty looks like in our students. And emotional poverty, I'd love to do a little workshop with that for you, but it cuts across all demographics. Unlike financial poverty, emotional poverty actually tends to affect even students who are more fluent. It tends to manifest itself in kids across the board, but they're seeing it more in affluent students. But anyways, the workshop was designed to be able to identify what it is, what it looks like, and then providing classroom teachers with how it looks in your classroom, techniques for classroom teachers once a student explodes or their emotions just get real raw, how to deal with it as classroom teachers to help mitigate some of the behavior that they're seeing in the classroom, and then strategies that we can all use as educators to help build students up so that they can control their emotions a little bit better. One takeaway from the book is, as far as our emotions are concerned, we're always moving towards them or moving away from them. I mean, it's just that simple. And our emotions react like that. They react before we think. And that's the other thing that happens to a lot of us. I mean, even as adults, when we're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off, you want to react, but our brain catches up. That doesn't always happen in adolescence. So, yeah, emotional poverty. But that's my...
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So you mentioned the I team. So who was the process for initiating? And if this is more of a question for Kevin, that's fine. We can defer till later too. But who initiates a referral of a student for an I team, an intervention team? How does that work?
Sure. Well, each building has their own process, so I could not speak to the elementary or the middle school. But for the high school, there is a referral form, and the teacher would put the student's name on the form, and there's some check off like attendance or just withdrawn. Or maybe they actually know something because maybe the student shared something specific, but it's a referral process.
So somebody gets referred, then can parents initiate a referral? Or is it just typically a teacher?
It's typically in-house school personnel.
What happens after, and if we go too far down the path, we can certainly redirect and do this at a work session or whatever, but I think we can get through these quickly.
Okay.
What happens after a referral is made? Like, what is the support structure? You mentioned a number of roles. Is like a meeting had with the student, with those people in those roles and the parents, or what happens next?
Well, it depends what the issue is with the student. I mean, that's kind of what the I team does. It triages what the issue may be. If the issue is attendance, then we look at, why is there an attendance issue? We may ask the counselor, we try to get all the resources together to, what do we know about the student? Oh, they just went through, maybe there was a family situation that the student is going through. And we try to identify whether or not somebody is attending to that student. Oftentimes, we walk away from the I team with someone's responsibility to follow up in some manner. Sometimes, if it's an attendance issue, it's a truancy issue, and so maybe it's that type of referral. If it's a mental health issue, it might be let's look at them. Reaching out to the parent to see if they could possibly see our in-house therapist. So I'm not trying to be vague, but I'm being vague because it all depends on the student.
Sure.
And why all of a sudden there's some reason that a teacher referred them to I team.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful.
It's a variety of different things. It's
Yeah.
attendance, it could be mental health, it could be...
Yeah, and I'm just kind of trying to piece together a number of things from different things,
Sure.
portions of this meeting, and including the public comment portion where one of the individuals had expressed, that sometimes the emotions can be an expression of frustration and so on because of, troubles academically and not getting the academic support that they need. So what I'm driving at is how, what I really want to understand, and maybe this is a discussion between Kevin and I know we've been exchanging emails to try and make that happen, but how do we quickly drive to getting the students the support that they need in a way that aligns with state mandated requirements? I know that there's a lot of red tape and hoops that need to jump through from the state's perspective and from the school's perspective, but just ensuring that we through the I-team, through the different structures that we have in place for getting our kiddos the help that they need as fast as humanly possible. So great. I appreciate that. That clarifies things for me. Thank you, Rhonda.
Any other further questions or comments for Rhonda? Great. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Next is our Director of Teaching and Learning report, Kevin Keller.
And I will eventually turn this on. I'll warn you.
Okay, thank you.
I won't plan.
Thank you. Great.
I'll start here. I gave you a couple of PDFs with some of the data that's available, and we've broken it down a little bit. Did they come across in your board packet?
We have C data, and that is not your data. No, it did not.
No. Oh, well, that really shortens my presentation then.
That was
Well,
it was supposed to look like this.
Did we get that piece?
A while ago. This is
Okay.
the one I would.
From just last week, it would have.
Yeah, we didn't receive.
We didn't
that.
get it then.
DTL report
No, it's not
is
here.
not in here.
Oh. Okay. Well, I'll make sure you get that.
All right, thanks.
It's a high level overview of reading, math, science scores in comparison to, and I do have it on here. It'd be really tough to show it here. It actually comes out better on your screen, or if you print it out large. So I don't know what happened to that. So that was my enclosure item. So nothing.
No, I'm just double
Negative.
checking my file and then the board
It
book.
is not here.
I'll check with Kathy and we'll figure out where that's at then. So
I see it's checked in closure items.
yeah.
No problem.
Well, then I am gonna shine up here, Amy, and Kathy, you might wanna
All right.
move a little bit here. We're gonna talk a little bit about a different set of data called growth data that you might have come across. And it's a piece that we talked a little bit about with the staff at Reams. Kevin, Brenda, and I had an opportunity to talk to the Reams staff about their growth data. Hopefully this gets a little brighter here. And so we're going to talk about math and reading MCA 3 scores. The reason why science isn't up here is partially because of how the science test occurs, and the growth data doesn't quite work out quite as well. If you look at this little chart here, if we think about this in terms of what we'd want to see our students, how we want to see them proceed throughout the years here, if we're looking at like MCA scores, obviously we want all of our students to meet and exceed on MCA scores, okay? But you can have two kind of categories here. You can have meets and exceeds, and they're getting high or medium growth, and that's a statistic that we can kind of dig out from the state data. You could have a meets and exceeds student that gets low growth also. There's a couple ways where that can happen, and I'll explain that real quick. You also get students who partially or do not meet state standards, but you're seeing high and medium growth. And I'll show you some examples of that in our data. What we don't obviously want to see is partial and does not meet low growth. We're always working towards that upper left-hand corner as we move through. Now the one meets and exceeds MCA standards and has low growth. Couple explanations for that. Number one, it could be a student who is just at grade level and didn't make big gains, or it could also be a student who exceeds grade level and it just doesn't show up on the test. They're at a point. So you got to be a little careful how you read some of this data as we kind of move through. But I'm going to give you a couple of examples from our data that'll show that really what we want to work towards is that high to medium growth, even as we kind of, the term that's used in the district is called the bubble student. I hear the teachers. That's not one of my terms that I brought. So that was in the district before I got here. I like it though. It makes sense. It's that student that's right on the edge of moving from that partial and doesn't meet to that meets or exceeds. And if you get that high medium growth, I mean, we don't have a lot of kids per grade. You'll see a big jump in our data, in our meets and exceeds data as we kind of move through. So this is off the Minnesota report card. If you look there, here is Reams. On the left side, we've got math. Now, if you notice, it's only 4th grade. You don't get a 3rd grade because note that the 3rd grade result sets that base level of where the student's at. We don't have a 2nd grade MCA score. So we can't tell if they're doing high growth or not. So this is 4th grade data. So on the left-hand side, I would point down here in particular and look at these numbers here, and then even look at these numbers here. What that's saying is that although we had some non-proficient students, we still had 9 kids that are showing high growth from 3rd grade. And those are what we like to call the bubble kids. Some of those kids that we really need to kind of focus and drill down on. Not that we can ignore those 8 and 21 other kids as we go through. We need to move those students along too. But as we're looking for ways to kind of measure success year after year, I would suggest that we look at our growth data. I think it's a better way to judge the work that we're doing as we kind of move through the system here. It shows our kids are growing year to year. If you look at the reading information over here, you can kind of see that we've got, here's our out of our cohort of 4th graders again, you've got, what was it, 83% are showing high or at least medium growth per year. And even down here, this is actually a good sign in terms of the future abilities of these kids. And we always talk about, what's our percentage of kids? We've got so many kids that are doing XYZ, but when you really get down to the sheer number of kids, we're looking at 7 kids that really we got to focus on and really start applying some of that information or some of the resources that we need to move those kids along. So that's the way I kind of take a look at some of this data that maybe we haven't looked at before. Some of the middle school, this will kind of highlight why this growth data is important here. On that left side, you got that math data, okay? If you look, it looks like there's a big piece there in the low part of the math data. But when you really kind of dig down into it, it turns out that it was one grade level that really struggled last year that brought that whole set of data down. And that's a piece that we're going to have to watch as that particular group moves through the middle school. Looking at the reading data, again, very similar. And when you get that other data packet, you'll kind of see how we relate to the state scores too. We do really quite a bit better than the rest of the state, percentage-wise, but I would argue that we should be doing better than the rest of the state too. Okay, thank you. They should have it now? Okay. Then finally at the high school, we've got our math and reading scores. Again, only showing one grade level, but it's kind of showing where we're at with reading and math, and really some very good numbers regarding that high growth, medium growth throughout the district. And like I said, that would be a piece that I would really ask you to focus on when it comes time to looking at data. The next slide, again, this is public information, but I'm going to show you going back to the Rockford Middle School piece here, and how that one cohort of students really skewed that data, and talking about how we've got vertical alignment. All right, that's one teacher in that situation. So that's really the importance of having that right teacher in front of those students. So this is, like I said, this is public information. It's out there. This is off the Minnesota report card here. Beth, you had a question?
I guess, can you clarify what you just meant? one team.
Yeah, this is, I know, look at it carefully, grade 5, okay? And what I'm trying to say is that this was one cohort of students, because we only have one teacher per class, this is a class that struggled last year. And you can see that in the data. And that impacted that score. And so when we really start to dig down into the data, we got to be a little bit careful. Yeah, just that's no longer here. Yep, so, yeah, I hear you.
Yep, thank you.
All right. So as we go back, I think this is what you just were given. This looks familiar to last year. And if you look at some of the data that was just kind of given to you here, we're looking at the Rockford area schools in comparison to the statewide scores. Whoops, sorry. That happens to me frequently. I'm going to start over here with the reading comparison. And here's our cohorts as we kind of move through. Here's our difference with the state at each grade level. It looks like our grade levels are cutting off just a little bit. So here's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As we scroll over to the right, a little bit here. This is the difference between Rockford and the state. And you can see this year we're in the plus categories for all reading categories as compared to the state. Same thing with our math score comparisons. Except for that one there that we saw. And the science score comparisons. And there's a little dip right at that point there. But as you dig through this data, they'll kind of show you those developing proficient meets exceeds levels as we kind of go through. I'm sorry, partial meets exceeds levels. So D is does not meet, P is partially meets, M met, E exceeds. Okay. All right.
So Kevin, can you explain, based on this data, did you generate building goals? Because I don't know that we've heard.
Yeah, so what was generated then was I asked the QComp group to go back and talk to their principals to generate some of those building goals that are based on that. And what we looked at was more of like the reading and math goals, not setting out necessarily like 2% increases. Because if you look at the math increase at Reams, I believe their proficiency was like 78%. That's a great thing to continue at, you know, if we can continue to raise that growth. And so the other piece that we're starting to look at too then is that concept of that opportunity gap or the achievement gap as we kind of move through. And that's some of the work that Ron is doing district-wide. That's a piece that we talked about at Reams. That's a piece that we've talked about at the high school. And we will talk about that at the middle school also as we kind of go through. One of the things I asked as Kevin Neff goes out and talks to groups is I asked him, let's not bring data out without some explanation. So instead of just kind of pushing it out there, let's follow it up with some explanation of that data as we kind of go through, and that those discussions have gone a lot better this year. I've seen an improvement in how the data actually means something to that individual teacher, how those MAP scores and how those FAST scores are being interpreted differently. And one of the other things that we said too, or that I asked for, was before we go to conferences, just let's try to make sure that all of the teachers understand what is the data that they're giving out to those parents, because you don't want to get a parent that asks a pretty knowledgeable question and not be able to answer that question. And so we looked a little bit deeper at what those FAST scores really do mean, what that MAP score means, and even what those MCA scores are talking about. So they do get their ISRs, their individual student reports. Those are the MCA scores, but you know, other than did I pass or not, there's a lot more data there for parents to ask questions about. So that's kind of the next data step that we're working on, and we're able to do that with Kevin. That helps a lot.
And with Kevin's help, I can speak to the elementary because they have FAFSA, that's more ongoing data collection. And earlier, the parents had addressed us, plus you were talking about growth. An area I would have teachers look at is that expected growth.
Yeah.
What is a student supposed to grow? And the students that are still striving, we want them to exceed the expected growth because they're closing the gap.
Yes, it's huge.
So that will be a point where you can take everything, you're looking at the growth model, which is awesome. So at the elementary, that kind of lets you know if what you're doing is working, if they're exceeding that growth model.
Right, which is a different way to look at data at that individual teacher level. And to really kind of focus in on the kids as we kind of go through. So now we're not just giving the fast to give the fast. We're not giving the map to give the map. There's a purpose behind it. Is our proficiency expected? Are we really reaching that expected proficiency as we go along? Yeah. And you are hard to get a hold of. we tried. It was a good effort.
Yeah,
we'll work it out.
It's a nice shot.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen. That's a good reminder to make it happen.
Good.
All right. Thanks, Cal.
Too bad.
A couple of things here. Curriculum Advisory Committee is. Oh, I'm sorry.
Still black.
So can I ask some
is October
data questions before you
sure.
dive into that piece of it? Because you know, by now I love looking at data.
Oh, I know.
So this was a very helpful view of you that I didn't know how to create and how to filter working with the MDE site. So thank you for sharing that.
It's different.
Probably the more, I speculate a layperson at working with those reports. Well, if people, I'd be interested to know how many people look at those reports, but I do. And kudos on the elementary school level report across math, science, and reading, improved across the board. Middle school and high school, we did not see improvement. So what do you do with that kind of at the macro level, looking at this data, looking at that data? What's next?
Well, I think if you look at it at the macro level, I think that's a mistake. I think you got to look at it at the classroom micro level. And what Bobby was talking about before is that alignment of PLCs, those professional learning communities. Those groups should be talking, even if they are vertically aligned, they need to talk about what curriculum and what PD they need. And that's what I've been asking for. I'm like, you generate some questions. What areas do we need? And if we need to, we can dig into what are called the strands. The strands are the pieces of the MCA reports that kind of show that individual teacher what they're missing in their instruction, at least in math, reading, and science. And our other teachers should be supporting those pieces as we kind of go through also. So that's really what we're looking for when we're talking about what curriculum do we need. That shouldn't come necessarily all from me. That should come from recommendations from the teachers. And it shouldn't be like, well, this is the book. No, it should be a piece that fits that curriculum.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right there. And I liked the piece in Bobby's packet, which I think would be really helpful, especially when it came to the how will remediation, reteaching, and relearning be provided. Yeah. I think that so long as our teachers are thinking about that, implementing that, I think that's a great strategy to help drive up performance of those people that show growth or category right below growth in the non-proficiency area, and even on the lowest in the non-proficiency area. So,
and what you're looking at, we did send teachers from every building to that training. Brenda and I also went to that training this summer. That's pretty straightforward PLC work, and what we're trying to do is to take that PLC work and merge that with QComp. Mm-hmm. Because the QComp PLC and PLCs, that's the model that it should look like, and we're working towards that as we move through.
Yeah, and I just wanted to go back to your comments that the data that I was looking at probably isn't the data that we should be looking at, and while I agree, probably based on what I've just seen here, I also want to stress that is the data that Joe Public sees, and helps parents make informed decisions about where they want to send their kiddos to school. And we want to keep every kiddo that's in our Rockford district, and ideally, if we're the right destination for other kiddos, to give them the information they need to bring them here. So I think through targeted strategies, we'll reverse the trend that we saw in the macro level data by analyzing the data that you presented. So.
And I do think if you compare our data to the state, you'll see that we do actually exceed the state.
I would expect that, yes.
Now, you can look at your local districts, and I think that's what you're looking at more.
Yep.
And I do agree, it should be at the state level, we should be exceeding the bylaw. I totally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my questions for now.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
So this is making me think more, so now more thinking about secondary, so middle school and high school. It's not so much anymore about identifying them. These students have already been identified, so it's more about remediation. And it goes back to what I've been talking about all year is some kind of MTSS system. These students are already identified. So what we need at the secondary levels, what are we gonna do now? Instead of continuing to circle the problem, we know that these are some striving students, what are we gonna do now? That's where I want the action steps, because they're identified. So what next? What are we gonna do now?
And I'm not going to answer that right here. That's a great question. That's
no,
what,
it's a question
that's
that
our
we
work.
need to keep asking.
Yeah, that's our work day after day. And it's hard for people to kind of, if they haven't been in a school district, and I know you, and I know what you're asking.
Yeah.
What is next? And part of that answer is our work with IB, our work with the middle school standards, continuing with the pieces that we put into place at the elementary school, and to continue to work through that. Yeah.
So Kevin, you had been tasked previously about getting together and getting a job description of things for the MTSS coordinator and working with the staff. Is that
it's an
paused?
ongoing?
Is that
no,
stuck?
it's ongoing.
So at the next, can we get an update as to where that is? That would be great. I'd appreciate it. Because looking at it with the data and technology integrationist, you look at the things that Kevin is doing, it's more that vein of work rather than data and technology integrationist, right?
It's more MTSS?
Yes.
Well,
so
and
I mean, as you look at it, pulling MCA data, doing data dives, doing map test prep and support, that's that person's, and that's why many districts have transitioned away from a data technology integration specialist because they've proven interesting.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. And that's why we use it in this format. Exactly. Because if you look at, it's kind of true because what our true needs are, we've got access to data, but at the same time we've got this need. We have a fundamental need to work directly with some of our technology. And some of the pieces that I had the opportunity to look at, some of that usage data, like what tools are actually being used versus what we purchase. When I took a look at that, there was some real obvious, I would call them red flags on some of the stuff that we've used. And so that's why we've kind of taken this direction with like MobiMax training. It was a pilot program that we successfully piloted and really got some positive feedback from our teachers that they wanted to move forward with it. So it's a big piece of what we've been looking at. It's just a piece.
Thank you.
I'll just say I appreciate the way you walked us through the different pieces of information to help us decipher that, right? And early on when the board started, we kind of said what we're going to be about. So Bobby's and then your report, how they kind of flow together and different things. It's stuff that we can all acknowledge there's work to be done, right? So we appreciate all the work that you guys are doing and the conversation that you're willing to bring to the board. I just appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? And I'll echo that. Thank you for this. I mean, I just feel like Bobby's update and your update really aligned from a curriculum and looking at the data and all of those sort of things. So thank you for that this evening. Really appreciate it.
Which is going to lead right into IB. I mean, how is it great?
I know. Don't take my agenda item calling up job away. So Matthew. So it is our time for our IB administrator's report. And Matthew, we would love to hear your update.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start, I've got 4 particular items and then just provide a little bit of context for each one. Number 1 is the RHS IB Advisory Committee. We have now had our first meeting. We were going to have a meeting tonight, but we had a conflict with several folks in different meetings, so we'll be moving that to next week. Our focus is the IB implementation plan. I know we talked about that briefly at the last meeting. That is really the crux of our work. That is a total of 137 items that need to be either in place or in progress by the time of authorization. We are now in October of 2019. We are targeting November of 2020 for those authorization visits, and that would be for all 3 programs, MYP, DP, and CP. And I just want to take a quick aside. We're very, very happy and fortunate that CP has now been added to the grant narrative. So any professional development, we just had board members, superintendent, and teachers attend MYP, DP, and CP training. All of that was included in the grant, so that's great. But back to the IB action plan, or the implementation action plan, we are using that as our focus, and based on feedback from our consultants, we're starting with the first things that they indicated we need to start with, and that's the policy development, and the mission statement. We have finalized our mission statement in terms of draft language, received feedback from our consultants on that, and then we also received feedback on our academic honesty plan or policy, which was the first one that we really focused on together as a group. At our first meeting, we have about 12 people on the committee. Only 5 could be there because of so many different commitments. People are very, very busy. So I have on here the members. A representative from each department was invited to be included. We want to have every voice at the table. So the committee has a bigger group or more members, and then the next part, the project teams, that's our focus. So each meeting we have, we're going to separate into different project teams to tackle the items on the IB implementation plan. And collaboration is the key. You'll see that language throughout. You probably heard it at your training. Collaboration is key, and that's what we'll be focused on. And that is really our modus operandi for this IB advisory committee. Professional development, we've had several things that either just occurred or that are coming up. October 16th, so just last week, we had our IB workshop, Wednesday IB workshop in the morning, and Paula Palmer, who's one of the pioneers of the career-related program, she came and she could speak to the genesis of this program and why CP can reach so many students, whether these are students that are intending to head to college, to a 2 or 4 year college. It's folks that have a career already in mind by the time they're in high school, and they really want to focus some of their high school activities and time on a potential career. Some examples of career pathways are manufacturing. We've talked a lot about that in the CTE and kind of the rebirth of that, especially in this area. Education is another very popular career pathway. Medical, so RN, it really is anything that can end up with a licensure or an accreditation. So we will be in that process of contemplating what will those career pathways be for our CP program. So that's exciting stuff. On September 30th, going back a little bit, we had a 2-hour late start. We had 5 project teams throughout the school, interdisciplinary, different grade levels, different levels of experience at Rockford High School. It was great. Principal Dean led a group. I was able to facilitate a group, and that's where we really started our work on the different policies and the mission statement, and then our IB advisory committee could just jump off of that work. We also had just a few days ago, the group that went to Atlanta, Georgia. I've heard great things from the people I've talked to. I know there might be future opportunities for our board members to possibly share or present not only what you learned, but the questions that were generated. And that's what I've said at every presentation. The information is very important, but the questions, I should say, and the questions you have, the questions that you're generating are just as important, so we can reach people where they're at and help them understand. Communication and feedback opportunities. I'm really happy to say our podcast, and they have some big hitters on these IB Matters podcasts. Right now, the Rockford High School podcast, facilitated by Maris Ehlers, is number 2 out of 30 on their list. And that doesn't even include all the people that have listened to it through either the Rocket Pride website or our website. And we're still number 2. And they have, national speakers, of international renown that are on there, so that's pretty cool. Social media, we continue our work with Media Minefield to send out little chunks of information about MYP, DP, and CP. And then Student Lunch Bunch, I met with several students today, and over the last few weeks, they come in, bring their lunch, and they've got questions. And one nice thing is the questions that they're asking then feed our work as an IB administrative team because they're living it, especially these ninth graders. They are the first group that are kind of going through this, and the feedback they're providing on, well, this is what I'm seeing or what I feel about this rubric, or this is what I feel about possible class choices down the road. That's all grist for the belt for us. And then the Northwest Suburban and MSAP, the Magnet Schools Assistance Program, a lot of our time late in the last few weeks has been gearing up for that visit. It was a lot of data that we had to pull. They also wanted some data from October 1st of what was our attendance, what were the demographic breakdowns of our attendance, and they used that to look at our year-over-year enrollment in advanced courses, demographics of different types of students at Rockford High School. We have seen an increase in diversity, and one of that aspects might be is more students that were Northwest Suburban students previously that did not have access to transportation now do. So our ninth graders is the first group that's been able to access transportation. So that's one trend that we're seeing. Any questions?
Go ahead.
I'll say I I have a new appreciation for the job you have ahead of you. So I was in the DP administrators group, right? And we went around what are different questions, and the question was, how do we communicate this to families? And one of the things, so I sat in a room with other principals and administrators for DP who had been doing it for these years in their school, and that was one of their questions. And then we sat in there, and I sat in there for 2.5 days, right? And it just is a lot, and there's so much kind of around different things that it's a lot. So I appreciate the way that you're leading that. I appreciate the challenge you have of communicating that's something that's kind of abstract and different than the way we think of schools being A, B, C, D, E. I mean A, B, C, D. F is grading, and you have a 4.0 and you go on there. There's a lot of different stuff, and there's some different changes there. So I appreciate the way you're doing it. I appreciate also the way I hear you working with teams, and this is, I could say, to the entire district, that of having so many people that are trained in IB already. I think our district, and Jessica and Beth can talk to this as well, but our district, just hearing what was going on, was looked at like really well. And to hear how many of our staff are trained, how we are able to do, each of the programs, the NYP, the CP, the DP, it was really good. So thank you for your leadership in that right now. I know it's a hard task, and I know it's the right task. I was affirmed in the board of we're doing the right thing.
Thank you very much. I just want to address one thing about how do you reach people where they're at? And we have tried the big sessions in the auditorium. We're going to try something a little different. Parent-teacher conferences are this Thursday, so it's going to be more of a individual. Come on in, and we're going to welcome folks. We're going to do a little interactive envisioning activity. Whether you're a parent or a student, imagine you are a sophomore in a DP authorized school. What would be your pathway? Yeah. And just that conversation, both the questions and answers that are generated, is going to help us move forward.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
Yes, so yeah, I agree. I think the three of us would say going to the training gave me a much better understanding of the undertaking that we're moving towards, so that was great. One of the things, and I can share a lot of the resources with you, I have a Padlet just packed jam full of stuff. One of the things, and I think DP and CP have the same thing because I was at MYP, is that checklist of this is everything we have to have by November. So somehow if we could just, I don't know what it would look like, but just see the boxes as they're getting checked, or that would maybe talk about the advisory committee. I don't expect you to come and go through them line item by line item. That would be a lot. So this is just kind of my big picture, just because 3 of them's a lot, and I want just see that progress. And then every time we hit a big benchmark or something, we can celebrate and have a little ooh. Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you. That echoes. I had a conversation with the principal and acting superintendent Dean this morning along the very same lines. So you guys are
okay. And I can share what on the Padlet, and so somehow some kind of Google Doc, or I don't the manner of how you share it. I'll let you take that, but it would be so wonderful because I want to celebrate the progress, and that would be little things we tweet out. At the U, we are constantly tweeting out how amazing we are. So let's do that in Rockford too. Okay? So I want to hear constantly about how...
Hashtag we are amazing.
Yes, exactly. I do that all the time. Nebraska extraordinaire. No, I'm teasing. But that would, I just think, a way, just little things like that, constant progress. And you use Twitter to let it explode all over the universe, is my suggestion for how to communicate with people. Cool. And then, so putting that was one thing I was thinking about. Another thing, and I know this was already probably talked about in your advisory committee, I would like a big picture again of the budget. I know that there is one. Where are we at with that? And again, it doesn't necessarily have to come to here, but if it's talked about at the advisory committee, and then whichever one of us is on the advisory committee.
Specifically with the grant, is that
Yes.
what you're asking? Where are we at with the grant money?
Well, and, yeah. Are you,
One at a time.
Sorry.
Okay, so, I mean, if Eric is the money man, so I'll let him continue that conversation. Well, the treasurer is what I meant. So I think that was my 2 plus. Thank you very much for what you do though, because again, I know it's a big load with the 3 of them, it's a heavy, so I want you to know that I'm here to help in any way and get the word out and just let everyone know how great this is for the district and how we're moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
So with that, to echo Beth, I would like to see, we have many items that are needing to be accomplished, 130, whatever you said, right? I'd like to know what's done, what's in flight, and what do we have, and what's the tentative time for addressing those things. And I know you probably have something like that. So if we could just see something like that, it would be great, just so we know that we're not coming to November of whatever, and all of a sudden we've got 100 to do. That would just put me to ease a little bit more. The other thing, talking about budget, we have several years of a grant available to us, and not that I like to think about where our money is, but I'd like to see a breakdown of this is where we are with our budget, this is what we're anticipating spending per year for PD, for travel, for consumables, for whatever. A budget laid out to say, when we get to year 5, we're not broke. I'm worried about that. Okay?
Well,
Not
at the
that
end
we're-
of year 5, we want to be zeroed out.
I agree, but not before that. Right? Because I don't want this coming out of the general fund right now, especially with the inclusion of CP on top of it. Because that's a whole new line of thinking to include and send to training and get all of those materials on top of. So that's another caveat that we have to take into place. And then I know that in my line of work, we work with several IB schools, and I know that their standards and their grading practices shift about every 7 years, and there was an update recently. Have we gone through the scope and sequence? I mean, we've talked about scope and sequence for this district, a little bit brushed it. Has that been talked deeper and finalized, or is that still in process? As well as, have we talked about how we're getting into the standards-based grading, the assessments, and the scoring? Have we established that and gotten that stuff set up within our district yet?
Those are very deep questions. Which one would you like me to start with?
All of them. Okay. One answer. Awesome. We'll get back to that in a future meeting.
We can get back to the future. Yes, I can.
Very good. That was what I was hoping to hear.
Okay, you just heard it.
Future meeting. Great. Great question. Jessica, did you have anything to add at this point in time? For questions?
Not really. You and I got to visit a little earlier, and I was able to share with you my excitement after being done with the training and I'm very excited about a CP program coming to our district and how beneficial that will be to our district. It's a huge undertaking, and I echo yes, there's a checklist, and when you're adding one more program to that, that's a lot more. And so what can we do to help with that? I am so excited about that CP program. It was wonderful training, and I talked to you about, let's get our staff that great training. How can we do that and move forward with that? So
Thank you very much.
good.
Any other questions or comments? Great, thank you. I think the one thing that we did add just to the agenda that you may or may not have heard at the beginning is Jessica did ask for this board to consider an appointment of a board member to your advisory group. And I think I'm speaking for myself. What I'm hearing that the intention of that is to be able to serve in a supportive capacity. Again, I've heard 3 now members say, what do you need? And so we have board members on multiple different committees, and being that this is such a huge lift for our district, I believe that is the agenda item that Jessica has further on in the meeting, just to allow the board to engage in whatever way makes sense in a supportive capacity. So.
Yeah, and it's just one more way to add that communication to the whole board at a board level regarding the IB program. So that would be something really beneficial. And after being there, I just think, wow, this is a huge undertaking for a district, and we need to have someone be a part of that process to...
Right, all the support we can have, that's great.
Awesome. Well, great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Great. All right. Sorry, my computer timed out.
Really?
All right, so our next agenda item. Our next agenda item is the acknowledgement of contributions, and this is an agenda item that we have every single month, and again, prepared through our district office, and it requires a resolution. However, what I am going to do is just talk through, we have 8 different community members or foundations that in this calendar month have given to Rockford area schools. Donations ranging from donations in kind, so materials is one of the donations, up to a $4,000 donation from the Rocket Boosters, the JCs, $2,000, the Rockford Festival Committee at $250, the Ed Foundation. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 different donations in here totaling, doing very quick math, right around $5,000. And then the Wells Fargo Foundation as well, with a donation and a family trust as well. I am just, again, each month we talk about this as a board, we present it as a board, and completely appreciative and have such gratitude for the giving that this community continues to do for the students of this district. With that, I would entertain a motion to do the resolution as written in the board packet. Unless there's, start with the motion and then we can go into discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the acknowledgement contribution listing as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
So I have a first and a second to accept the resolution as written, to accept the donations as written in the board packet. Do I have any further discussion or comment?
I just want to echo your gratitude and thanks to our community. It's such a good feeling every month when we have this on our agenda, and it's overwhelming at times. Like,
Yeah.
wow, we just have such a great community. So thankful.
Thank you. Great. Pending no further comment, I will do a roll call vote on the resolution. So Brady Anderson,
Aye.
Kevin Campbell,
Yes, yeah.
Eric Gordy,
Aye.
Jessica Johnson,
Aye.
Beth Preska,
Aye.
Amy Edwards, aye. The resolution passes unanimously. All right. The next agenda item is the assurance of compliance with state and federal law prohibiting discrimination. And this is as part of the assurance of compliance, all Minnesota districts must verify that there's a copy of each of the following laws in every building in the district. There are links to the required laws on our district website, and the federal laws are written as in the board packet. The Minnesota Department of Education no longer requires a paper copy of the Assurance of Compliance certificate. However, it's important to note that by submitting the Assurance of Compliance online, that the district is verifying that the superintendent will electronically sign this assurance on behalf of the school board. Though the paper copy is no longer required, the approval of the board is per Minnesota Rule 3535.9910. Approval of the assurance of compliance is recommended. This is an action item. Any further comments, Rhonda, on this one?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
So at that, I would entertain a motion to approve this as written.
I'll make a motion to approve the assurance of compliance 2019 as written.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All right, pending no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes. All right, next is the request for updates for the security system. This is an action item. And Jim, I'm just going to have you come up just for, should there be any questions related to this, and I will be happy to present this. So the 2019 state legislature approved a one-time commitment to additional monies for safe school funds. The Rockford area schools anticipates receiving about $62,000 in additional funds this year from safe schools. This will not be continuing funds. This is a one-time fund option for school districts. The district is recommending to use these funds for updates to our security system that would include things like key fobs, cameras, and other needed areas. If the board agrees to utilize the funds in this fashion, action is needed. Again, we cannot talk in detail around our security and what the need is. That is something that we would not do in an open session. So if the board needs that, we would need to close the session and do something different at a different time. We have this funding secured for our liaisons in place. So again, this is a one-time money that I believe that our leadership in the district is suggesting that it would be really important to use for technology upgrades. Anything else? And equipment, yeah. Anything else without going into your detailed plan that would be important for this board to know?
The only thing I got to say is, just like everything else that runs equipment is based on technology. And your computers, as soon as they hit your desk, they're probably outdated. So in our building automation systems, in the things that control our hot, cold temperatures, those all are driven by technology. So these are technology pieces that, as anything else, has a life cycle. And sometimes we reach that life cycle. So that's where the administration has pinpointed and say, we got this one-time funding, we need to do some technology upgrades. So that's what we were proposing to do, is to use that one-time funding to upgrade, update the technology that we have.
Eric.
Mr. Lord, do you know when the last time the district did a safety and security assessment or audit?
Yeah, I wasn't here, but I can look back at paperwork, and I'm just going to throw a dart at it. It was around the time when they did the addition to the new high school, was what the last time they did safety and security analysis. If you remember, what kind of generated this one-time fund is about a year and a half ago, legislature gave $25 million for safety and security for school districts that you could apply for. We weren't successful, but they also found out that the district's needs were $295 million. So this is kind of one of the things they negotiated to help, if for a fund balance at the end of their fiscal year, that they could help some school districts do some safety and security money upgrades. So it's a one-time funding mechanism. That's kind of what generated this funding as a one-time basis, because they understand that districts have a lot of need out there. So it's been a little while.
So I know Bobby and team went to Alice training a while ago. Do we have, you went to as well? Awesome, getting shot with an airsoft gun right in the classroom. And
Actually, when I went, I was recovering from a knee replacement, so I got to be a standby.
Yeah, it's a sobering experience to go through that training, right?
Yes.
And, do we have, I mean, I don't know the last time the district has gone through the safety and security plan to update and implement anything that possibly you guys learned, but maybe a committee or something. I don't know if that is a thing here, but maybe something to investigate.
Timing on that question is perfect, because actually
you didn't set me up. I'm just asking questions.
No, I know. No, the timing is perfect, because one of the things that we recognized that we needed to do is review our crisis management plan a little bit, and we waited for our SROs to get on payroll so they can give us the professional input. Last Wednesday, our crisis team met for the first time to start the process of talking about updating our crisis management and get it going and get some training started. So it's our first meeting of many to make sure we get it right. But yes, we have started that process on our crisis management program.
I talked to Superintendent Durand about this a little bit before this, and one of the things that he was saying, and Jim, this probably makes a lot of sense, is some of the stuff, you know, like key fobs, for example, on that are dated, right? And so that some of this will be some of that kind of stuff that's security, and other of it will be both safety and security, right? That will go more into the action plans kind of stuff that you don't talk about at a meeting like this. But so there's a need in both sides, yeah.
Yep.
That's your understanding?
Yes, it is, yeah.
And that is my same understanding, and having had a very similar conversation with Superintendent Durant.
And to be honest, this isn't something that we started talking about 2 months ago. We started talking about this back in January.
Yep.
And we've been talking about it and just putting things together and checking different things and everything else, and make sure, and we're gonna do it again right the first time, and what we need and what we need to do. So I think from our standpoint, I think we put in some good time and effort to make sure we've got the right product, the right plan, and the process we're taking is the right direction.
Any further questions or comments regarding this agenda item? All right, this is an action item.
My favorite thing is to make motion letting money come in.
Yes.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for security updates for security system, or what is this? missed the safe schools. Yep.
Nope, not
Requests for
No, it's not.
whatever
It's just
updated,
money
yeah,
from-
money from the federal government or the state government, whatever. So I make a motion to approve the acceptance of the money as presented in the agenda item. I'm trying to figure out what I needed to say there.
Very good. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead. I'll second that.
All right, so I have a first and a second, and really the motion that I'm understanding from Mr. Gordy is that this is a motion to approve the one-time dollars to go towards updates to our security system, some of which we can talk about, some of which we cannot, to, you know, in the technology area and those sort of things.
Very good.
All right, as written in the board packet. So I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Pending no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Passes. Thanks.
Correct.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here to present that.
I like that.
Appreciate it.
Money.
All right, and our next agenda item. So this is the second and final reading of the MSBA policies that were brought forward to this board last month. Since those policies were presented, there were a couple of changes that came out of MSBA. And for all of you that know, we leverage MSBA to help with the policies. Kathy, thank you, because Kathy color-coded the changes that were presented last month in red, and the new ones to call to your attention were in purple. Okay? So because they were thank you. Did I say thank you? Thank you. Because I think as a board, when our job is to govern via policy, being able to see those changes very quickly and adeptly, and to know what was different from this month to last month is really critical and important. So Kathy, thank you again.
Thank you. Yes.
So with that, this is, we did, as we prepped this agenda, because these were minor changes through the MSBA and because they were noted and you've read these once before, we are presenting this as a second and final reading. And so with that, I would offer the opportunity to call for action on these policies.
So I'll make the motion that we accept the MSBA recommended policy revisions that we had before us here at the last board meeting and then this one as well. And that's my recommendation, that we approve them as written.
Great. So I have a first, do I have a second?
And let me just say both policies, policy 603 and policy 616.
And the rest.
And the rest throughout.
Second.
A first and a second. Any further discussion or comment? All right, so pending no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes. Thank you. And again, thanks Kathy for making it so clear for us. I greatly appreciate that.
Wait till next month. There'll be more.
We can't wait. And that is one thing that that Kathy does is you keep us on pace for making sure that our policies are current and accurate, and that is no small feat. And not only looking at them to make sure that they're not outdating, but making sure that they're in compliance with state and federal guidelines and staying on top of that. So again, gratitude for that. So thank you. Amongst her other duties, that is a big one. So community education annual report. Enclosed in the packet, and Melissa, if you want to, you're here still, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, why don't you come on up? Yep, so prepared in your packet, this is the Community Education Annual Report 2018-2019 for our review. This is submitted to the MDE. This is not an action item, so this is nothing that we as a board need to approve or endorse or vote on or anything like that, but it is our opportunity to do a quick review and to know that it is being submitted per regulations to the MDE. We look at this every year about this time for this agenda item and purpose. So if there's, I'll just open the floor. If there are specific questions related to this, it goes through, as you know, some numbers and things like that with who's engaged in the programs. Questions about this? Melissa, do you have anything you'd like to, any comments that you want to share specific to this? No?
No, it just the one big piece is just how much our district is used between tournaments, and we had a lot last year. So, I mean, like some people look at that number over 30,000 and are shocked, but because you can duplicate numbers there. So all of our tournaments and rentals and stuff. So that's the only thing. It's just that really is a telling sign of how much our district is used. So our facilities.
I have a question or maybe some clarification. The section, adults with disabilities, it says if the district receives adults with disabilities revenue. Can you explain that to me?
We get, certain districts get money for adults with disabilities. We don't have any programs for adults with disabilities, but other programs do. So we get certain levies for certain ones, but not that.
So that's something we could add if there's, like, I guess I'd like to explore further how we could bring programs like that to the area.
So yeah, we could, like right now we get money for like our GED program and stuff like that. So that's where our levy comes in, is for adult basic education, but not with disabilities. Honestly, I don't know enough about it, but I know it might have something to do with resources or something. I don't know.
Because that might be something that I could facilitate at some point. Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I echo really what you just said about the use of the facilities and the people engaged in the programs. I think that when we've talked about the unique aspects of this district, that is one of the things that hits top of list for many people, is not only what they can do within our schools, but also within our community ed programs. Our facilities are certainly used to a capacity, and we especially hear that going into the basketball season, which is just starting right now.
Started today.
So I have no doubt you were juggling space and doing all of those things, as well as Brady just gave a fist pump. So, but it's true. I mean, it is true. And I mean, I would say what a great problem to have.
Yes.
That so many families and kids want to be engaged in different ways. So kudos to that. And when I read this every year, I think the same thing of, wow, great that we have so many people engaged in community ed activities, and our facilities are certainly used. There's no question to that. So this does not require an action. This is just an update. And so without any further questions, I can let Melissa back, but any further questions? Good.
I just want
Jessica.
to thank you, Melissa, for being here to answer questions tonight.
Oh, sure. No problem.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. All right. I think we're, I was going to say we're at 8:30. Do we need a break, or are we good? We're good? We've only got a couple to go. Perfect. Great. So the next agenda item is communications plan update. And at our work session, we had, excuse me, we had a conversation with Minefield, who is currently working with our IB program around IB communications and those sort of things. They put forward a multi-tiered proposal, and I think we've heard different ways that they've been engaged with our district. We've also heard different needs of our district too, some of which the proposal may or may not meet. When I look at that proposal, it seems fairly a la carte. So if there are areas within the proposal that we would say, it makes a good amount of sense for them to continue in, X, Y, or Z, or to engage with the district in these ways here but not there. That's the conversation that we wanted to just have as a board to reflect upon this evening. We did list it as an action item, so if there is action from this board about certain elements that we would want to proceed with, specific to the Media Minefield contract or proposal, we would be able to have that decision occur this evening. And similarly, we would have a conversation about, if there's anything that's missing, how does this board want to approach that as well, and provide direction to our temporary interim superintendent if there are areas where we want them to continue to look at communication. I know, right? In that area. Yep. Anything else you'd like to add there?
So my understanding, Amy, and you and I get to sit down and put this together.
Yep.
My understanding is this is not our, what we're not asking for is what's our big strategic communication plan right now, right? Where we're looking at different spots. This is a, how do we, how do we communicate some different things just around there, and part of what Media Minefield gave us was a like an a la carte piece. These are the things that we can communicate well. So as a district, as goes through different things, we could use them to help communicate things that we are going through.
So one of the specific areas that I know they've engaged in that might not be totally specific to IB is some of the communications with our like external communications. So engaging about, here's some cool things that are going on in the district, here's some things like that. And that's kind of, to me, that seems like their sweet spot is to engage with external media and external folks like that to continue to tell the story of the district. In my opinion, I think that there's another need in the district that might not be well suited by their proposal, which is things like updating the website and again, this is opinion of one, but updating the website, working on some of those other how we show up, like in the web design and use of that and those sort of things that perhaps we might need to look at other possible partners in that to support our district in those ways. So, and then I think we also heard at our last board session, we had the strategic planning conversation, and I think we heard there are things that we should engage in from a communications perspective, like right away, and there are things that we should hold off on as we continue to develop our strategic plan with our strategic planning company.
So I just want to make sure that we're talking about this proposal
Yes.
that was provided to us last time.
Yep.
So, opinion of one again. I think they hit a good spot of communicating with press, print media. I think they do a good job with other media outlets, and do have some good ability to create some engaging content online with social media. And again, I think there's some gaps in terms of how do we market ourselves more effectively to outside our district to draw in and to let neighboring communities know the value of what we have here. Yes, some of it can be good in the media minefield. They'll give us the opportunities, they'll give us the information, but yet we still need someone to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's my concern. And I don't know if our move with the strategic plan, will that help identify where our deficiencies or deficits, or however you want to say this, in terms of our communication with our community, our stakeholders, as well as engaging those that are touch to our district.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they're an option.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if it's the time. I don't know, right? You never know.
Yep.
But.
Thanks for that feedback. Brady,
Sure.
did you have something? Yep.
Comment. Yeah. So I think Media Minefield, they did a nice job presenting. They shared some really great, compelling pieces. We've been in the news a number of times since engaging them. That's a great piece of evidence that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing for what we're paying them to do. I think the big topic that we were talking about I think anyway, from my vantage point, are they the right company to help us put together a strategic marketing and communications plan and execute on that plan? And I don't believe that to be the case. I think if you consider the traditional marketing and communications funnel, right? There's awareness, consideration, conversion, loyalty, and so on after conversion happens. What they're good at is the awareness piece, right? But what we really need is somebody that helps us not just with the awareness piece, but that can help us consider tactics from awareness, consideration, conversion. Loyalty and advocacy are the other two elements of the marketing conversion funnel. And I know that because I'm looking at a diagram that I just Googled here. So
I thought you were just pulling it.
No, I'm not that.
Yes, you are.
I do have a master's in marketing. That's why I knew that a funnel existed. But anyway, so anyhow, so there was a community member here at the work session when we were talking about marketing and communication. For those that weren't there that are here now. And the community member and we had a discussion after the meeting, and I said, well, give me your take on on how you think we approach things strategically as a district. And I said, here's my take on it, and we had it was probably an hour-long conversation, and at the end of the day I said, so where do we take this? What are the logical next steps? So this person does have a marketing firm, does own and operate a marketing company, which is probably why this person was so interested in being in the work session. And so I said, well, it probably makes sense for you to put pen to paper or hands to keyboard or whatever, and put together what you think. I think we were in general agreement in our dialogue about Media Minefield does amazing work. I think they're right for PR, special interest stories, crisis management. That's what I think their roles are. And I think they'd be exceptional at it because that's what they tell us that they're good at, and they've demonstrated that they're good at it. So the owner of, I think the company's name is, what was it? Outside Insights, I think. She prepared a proposal, and I'm like, yes, this is what I'm thinking, right? So I would say that this group reviews that proposal as the strategic. The proposal included both the strategy side of it and the doing side of it, so that the district would not need to bring additional bodies to the table to be doers. Right, looking at how we're currently doing things, taking over some of things, simplifying some things, but putting together that broad framework, and then how we're going to execute against each element of that framework, from awareness to consideration, conversion, loyalty, and advocacy, and all of those elements. So from marketing down to tactical communication, and actually doing. And the proposal includes a number of different tiers of pricing that we can talk about at a later time, but all very fair and competitive. So I would suggest that we do, I don't know how this translates to motions or whatever, maybe somebody can help me with that part of it, but continue on with Media Minefield for special interest, crisis management, and what was the other one I said? Special interest again.
Interest.
Yeah, special interest pieces to build awareness of all the great things that are happening here.
So is that a motion?
Not yet, no. But
he's still talking.
I'm still it's all stream of consciousness, Kevin.
Gotcha.
So using them for that, and then considering an alternative proposal, given Captivate Media removed their hat from the ring in helping with the more strategic district-wide marketing and communications plan and execution of the plan. So
if it were a motion, it'd be two parts. One would be media minefield to help with I wrote your stuff down. Special interest crisis management and PR.
There you go.
Right?
Yep.
And then the second part was, which was that group?
Outside Insights.
And then that would bring them to a
work session
and then decide to engage with them, or are you saying we are ready to engage with them?
No, everybody needs a chance to review and ask questions.
Yeah.
So does that need to happen during a work session? Does that need to happen? I mean, the sooner the better from my vantage point. I don't know when the next work session is off the top of my head, but
First
Maybe
Monday
December.
in December.
Of December?
It's December.
First Monday in December. I don't remember the
Yeah.
number, but it's the first
I
Monday
can
in
tell you
December.
right now.
Okay.
2nd of December.
okay. I mean, if that's the way things flow, that's the way things flow, and that's cool. I can tell you from the proposal, the analysis work is like 4 weeks long, and then you can start doing some of the doing right then and there after. So then you're getting stuff cranked out in December-ish sometime. I mean, the sooner the better, right, at this time of the year.
After winter break, kind of come back, is what you're thinking?
Well, I mean, the consideration time window for parents making decisions specifically on open enrollment is, Jessica, when is?
For the magnet schools, January.
Yeah.
Okay. So the more marketing and communication that we can get out prior to that, the better. So I think if we wait until December, we would be behind the 8 ball on that. So I would love to have actual marketing materials hitting the eyeballs of prospective magnet school enrollees as soon as possible. So.
And Kathy, there's no work session scheduled for November? And is that because November's a busy month?
You can't have it on election day. You can't have it on Veterans Day. We have a regular meeting. There's just
a lot of it's full.
And Thanksgiving. So, yeah.
Could we do a work session on this topic prior to the regular meeting in November?
Absolutely.
Like a 5:30 kind of meeting or something?
Yep, start at 5:30, then start regular meeting at 6:30.
Yeah. So yes, we can talk about that during the kind of the next agenda item. But we could definitely, when we're talking about like 11A, just trying to keep us on point for that. But yes, normally we would want to talk about something of this scale at a work session with the opportunity to ask questions, with all board members having proposals. I would also add to that, this is one proposal. I would suggest, consider, do we need to go out for an RFI or something like that? Or are there other people or other companies that would do similar work to what you're describing, that are more of the doers work? And maybe there's not just one, but maybe there's a couple that, at least I feel like my opinion of one would want to make sure that that was an equal opportunity from a district perspective for that. So.
I agree. I follow your logic there totally, and always having more than one is great. I don't think it would be a formal RFI, RFP procedure. We did not do that for the previous
Right. Yep.
contract opportunities. If people that are listening to this recording are interested in submitting, great. If anybody knows anybody and they're interested in submitting, great. I don't know how we would want to approach that.
I think we can turn that over to our temporary interim superintendent.
Sure.
Put it on the list.
Yep, for that.
So-
Just to make sure that
Yeah.
whatever process needs to happen.
Yes.
And you follow that.
Yeah.
Yep, awesome.
Totally.
Great.
I'm ready to take some action. Is it okay, Brady? I'm gonna second your motion, or I'm gonna try to say your motion again. Would you like to say it and then I'll second it?
How about you say it and then I'll second it?
All right. All right, I'm gonna make the motion to engage Media Minefield in to help with communication in special what?
Special interest.
Special interest. Thank you. Crisis management spots and public
PR.
relations.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I'll also included in that motion is to further our discovery mode of a strategic communication plan and a company to help us with that.
Second.
So
Or I gotta wait for that.
No. I have a
Okay.
first and now I have a second. Any further discussion related to that motion?
So I know this is going into the weeds maybe a little bit, but we have several different a la carte options listed in their proposal, ranging from, $5,000 for a one-time communication strategy plan to $1,300 a month. $1,500 a month, those are the things that are listed here. If we're talking about doing this thing, I don't know what we're voting to say yes to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, there's no recommendation out of this so far to say, we wish to do this, right? And looking at that proposal, all of those fit all of those,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I don't know what I would be voting yes to in terms of a liability to the budget of our district if I said yes to this and it's not a open check.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Sorry to play that, but say it. So I need to know what I'm going to say yes or no to.
So one of the spots I see on there is a one-time spot, so could I adjust that to say up to $3,000?
Annually?
No, a one-time, without having to come back to the board. Under the discretion of the temporary interim superintendent, right?
And again, this may or may not flow nicely into the discussion that we also had with Jim around how we communicate when things happen, potentially in the walls of our schools and things like that. So, like a crisis communication plan, how do you let parents know that something's going on? And that was one of the items in this plan is how do we get the word out and how do we
Absolutely.
communicate and how do we do all of that well. So I believe that's what you're all talking about as well. Rhonda?
Well, I was simply going to ask, is there a time is of the essence to make this decision today, given what I just heard about maybe reaching out to another company to look at the other prong of what we're trying to do? Is there a need to take action tonight on this particular proposal?
Is there a possibility that potentially, if we have someone come before the next board meeting, that it would be multifaceted enough that they would be able to address all of this instead of a la carting it? I don't want to get too piecemeal because I think the message can get lost in the trajectory that, I would prefer if one company could help us. I don't want to be too fragmented in our messaging. That's my one little point.
Yep. I hear that, Beth. Yep, absolutely. Makes sense.
Well, and that would give me time to kind of get my legs under me in terms of what the proposal is, because I haven't, I'm not familiar with Media Minefield's proposal to be able to even provide input on a direction and to identify any gaps that you're identifying. And then I'd also want to know the current social media provider? Like, where do they play in this mix? Because I understand we have a contract with them. And I don't know if that, is that, 12 more months on, was it a 2-year contract? And are we in year 2? But how does that play into Media Minefield and the outside insight possibility in terms of what you're hoping that they will do for you? So to your point, Beth, we could potentially have now 3 different companies messing around.
So I'm willing to table then this discussion and come back to it at a later point.
Yep.
I think we don't need to take action on it today. I think what I would like to see from Media Minefield is if we want them to do, 2 special interest pieces and structure something around PR and some sort of pricing around crisis management and be a little bit more firm on those 3 things versus a month-to-month fee, 5, 15, whatever, so bid those 3 elements specifically, come back to us with that, we'll review that in conjunction with this other proposal, and then potentially take action on something in the next board meeting. That seems to make a lot of sense so that we can, get a good understanding of everything. So.
Yep. So, Eric, did you have something else you want to say?
Point of order though, we have a motion and a second though.
He just said that
So do we need to vote on?
No, because
Okay.
he's going to pull it.
Okay. Pulling, okay.
He's pulling his motion.
Very good.
Is what he just said,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the motion is off the floor. And so I guess I have a discussion that may lead to a motion. And being that we have our interim temporary superintendent, and we have Brady, who I think we've talked about a few different times about being a person on this board that could help to support corralling some of the communication ideas and kind of working behind the scenes to then help bring forward the kind of all of that to this next work session, if that is what we decide in the next agenda item. So I'm wondering what I will probably, because I think just for formality's sake, I know we've talked about it as a board, we've talked about it at our work session, we've identified Brady as somebody who has the background, who would likely be very happy to serve. And I'm just going to ask first, would anybody else like to serve in that capacity on this team in helping to kind of bring forward and help to aggregate some of those communication strategies to then talk about at our next work session in partnership with our temporary interim superintendent.
Alongside with Brady, or in place?
Well, we have to,
saying 2 or just 1?
I would say 1
Well, then,
probably.
let's.
At this point in time, because then if we have more than that, then it becomes a committee. and it becomes
that's
a
what
thing.
I was.
So it's really
I was kind
one.
of. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and not
what you were
dissimilar
asking.
to what you're suggesting for a representative on X
Yeah.
committee and what we do with the community ed committee, and this is kind of one of those big topics that it's like, well, maybe we should also consider having one of our board members just lean in a little bit in partnership, if that, and the direction, to be clear, the leadership and the comes from our district office in our superintendent, temporary interim superintendent. What we would be asking our board member is to walk alongside in partnership.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Is it a motion you're looking for then?
Well, then I guess, that would be the motion that I would ask for, or I can do one, but go for it.
I'll make the motion then that we, as the board, empower Brady to walk along the temporary interim superintendent.
The TI.
Isn't it interim?
And kind of have the marketing conversation and bring that back to the board and share thoughts and what we should be doing.
All right, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll make a second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion?
No.
Awesome. So at this point in time, I'm going to take a vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so
Thanks, Brady.
what we just did is we tabled the communication media minefield discussion, and we're going to continue to explore, and Brady's going to partner as a board representative in that walk. Awesome, great. Next. So our next, at this point in time, we're just into updates and announcements, so the team can be dismissed if you so choose for our usual deal. Our regular action, oh, wait a minute, nope,
We have
hold
one
on,
more.
hold on, hold on, hold on. I do have two, oh, that's weird. I do actually have two action items, but, so let's just rock through those. So, you can sit, yeah, sorry. So the first action item, 11A, is to reschedule the regular November meeting of the Board of Education to Tuesday, November 19th. I believe that was due to an availability deal, so is that fine with everybody?
Nope.
No?
I'm out and traveling
You're
on
out?
that day. Yeah, I leave on that morning.
Okay,
So
okay. So no,
The
does not work for
18th
you?
did not work, huh? Okay.
Well,
there-
but
The
we
18
can,
was the original date.
I mean, is
so
it hard?
we're
Is
yeah, but we
Yeah.
can take a look and just validate,
there a hard,
yeah.
an absolute no go on that Monday?
So that's a
So-
good question.
I thought it was my understanding that there was a suggestion to move it from Monday to Tuesday because actually I thought Superintendent Durant was not available on the Monday and we needed to do the auditor's report, so we were gonna move it to Tuesday.
Which
And
the
now-
auditor is available on
And now,
Tuesday.
and now the auditor is locked in on Tuesday.
Can we get
But
a-
now we don't have the conflict possibly on the Monday. So
Can the
Monday's
auditor be
open, but
available?
we don't know if the auditor
She's
can
booked.
move back.
I don't know.
Oh, I'm out of state.
I mean, personally, I'm open either day, but I would really like,
Yeah, I tried
when
to
it comes
do
to
that.
the,
You want the
yeah,
treasurer.
We do.
yeah.
So,
Sorry, I don't mean to hold everyone down.
no, thank you.
Day job has a
Yeah, nope, thank you.
responsibility.
So,
I can't answer that without calling her.
yep, so I think we can, at this point in time, I mean,
We can't move it to the 19th.
Can we at least add the work session prior to our November board meeting, whichever date it happens to be? Whenever we have it?
The problem is the auditor. If
And
she
then-
can't come up, then we're screwed.
Well, if she can't come up, we have to figure another day, because this is something we have to do in November, right? The audit report?
Yeah, November 20th.
December.
We can't, I mean, so what is the protocol for that? Can we pick a couple days, or like, what do we do?
Kathy, can you just
Kathy,
make
can
the
you
call
help
right
us?
now and just?
Wait,
Speed dial.
Legally, we should say in a public meeting when we're gonna hold the next regular meeting. We do not have another meeting to delay this to ask that question.
right.
Therefore, because we thought we were having it because of the conflict on the Tuesday, she probably, more than likely, have scheduled Monday.
Do you think so?
So, yes.
Yes, because she has 2-3 a night.
Right.
Oh. Because she's got one Wednesday, we looked at that. That was the only day that week she was available.
Was Tuesday? Oh.
So at the time we were talking to her about it, she was planning Monday, but then because of the conflict, so she said, well, I could do Tuesday too. That was our choices. We looked at the week before, we looked at the week after. That was our choices. We have to get this done in November. So we could take our chances and hope, but you're taking a big chance.
So if we don't do anything, we keep it the 18th,
Yes.
right? Because that's what's advertised or
Yes.
We would
out
have to
already.
Right.
add a work session.
And then if we discover,
That it doesn't work out for her, then what is our action?
Thank you, Amy.
Then we would have to publicly notify the public
Okay.
of various
Which
different
is
ways.
just a
Okay.
public notification.
And then-
But it should have been, and I'm not sure, I'd have to ask MSBA, approval by the board to change the date.
Okay,
I have a question. So we'll go back to our original date of the 18th.
which is the current date.
Yes. And let's just say she's not available, as a she, I think. The person's not available. could that be, okay, she can come and we could have a separate meeting just with that part of it? So we don't have to have, reschedule the whole board meeting, just the part where that
He's still
person.
not here.
Yeah. I mean, so the simple answer is yes.
Mhm.
Yep, we could.
And,
we can
and if
go
it
ahead.
has to be, I'm just one person.
Mhm.
So if it has to be, it has to be, right? We have to do this. Changing the board date isn't a big deal. It's just the notification of the proper media outlets and posting it on the door.
Yep.
Correct.
So
Right.
I'm just one person. I can always listen,
That's true.
which is fine.
That's true.
And
And you'll get all the information ahead of time too, so.
yeah, I already had the fun of going through that. So,
Yep.
So, yeah.
very good.
So
So
we're
I'm
not-
fine. I'm just one person. So one person shouldn't make
Yep.
this be a no.
True.
So,
That is a true statement.
yep.
But if everyone else is available on Monday and you're available on Monday, I would like to keep it as
Monday.
on Monday until, and then if the auditor's not available, Plan B would be Tuesday. And I realize we'd have to post it and go all through all that. I know that.
Okay, that's.
So could we make an action contingent upon, so we'll say, the plan is to have the board meeting on November 18th. Should that not work, board vet, yeah,
With the auditor.
should that not
Based
work
on
for the
availability.
auditor, the date will be November 19th.
Yes.
And we can make that vote here, and then you're just posting which
Yep.
one it is?
Yes.
Yep. And
We're
on
gonna do
that,
that.
let us know too.
So it sounds like Kevin's
In
making a
purple,
motion.
purple and red.
Sounds like Kevin's making a motion.
Go for it. Make your motion.
Okay, so that's the motion I'll make, is that what I just stated, is,
Did you catch that, Kathy?
My God, I was trying to pay
we're gonna
attention.
plan to have our next meeting as scheduled on November the 18th. Should it not work for the auditor to be scheduled that day, then we will meet on November the 19th instead.
Very good.
Another question. Before we move on with the, can,
Hold on.
There's a
I got a
motion.
motion
A
on the
motion,
floor,
so then
so we
I'll-
can't talk yet.
okay.
Would you like to add a work session to that motion?
With
Or do a separate one.
Or do a separate one? Would you rather do,
Okay,
okay. So, okay, sounds good. So I've got a
Don't
motion
make it
on the
too long.
floor. Fine. Got a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Beth, discussion?
So, assuming that this person goes meeting to meeting to meeting, can we be flexible? Would we also be able to change the time of the meeting? Let's say she was available at 5:30. Or he was available, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there, because I'm guessing
I
they
don't-
go
Yeah.
meeting to meeting to
Yeah.
meeting.
It's independent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
either way, whatever.
Okay. My recommendation would to keep a regular, like, we're used to meeting at 6:30 in this
6:30.
community for our
Yes.
board meeting. So my recommendation would be to keep our board meetings
6:30.
consistent at 6:30. And if the date needs to change, I feel like that's a slightly different
She
scenario.
could possibly meet later and come in at 7:30.
Sure.
We'd still start at
Right.
6:30.
We can
So
plan
we
the
could talk
agenda.
that part
Yep.
out.
That's my
Awesome.
point, was we
Yep.
can be flexible around.
Around our agenda.
Yes.
Yes.
With a 6:30
Yes.
start time.
Absolutely.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Beth, for calling that out. So we've got a first and a second. We had some discussion. Any further discussion? All right. Pending no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Next, do we want to talk about the work session that was discussed? Since that's kind of in this 11A section, to add a work session. Yeah.
Regarding a work session.
Yes.
Being that Eric is gone no matter what on the 19th, I would hope that possibly we can schedule a work session on the 18th.
Regardless.
Regardless.
Okay.
We have a work session just so that the whole board is here to be a part of that. I know.
Okay.
At 5:30.
At
no matter
5:30.
what.
Yeah, okay, so Monday.
So,
Okay.
I will make the motion to add to our board calendar a work session on Monday, November 18th at 5:30 to discuss communications.
Yep. Perfect.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Pending no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. All right. Next agenda item is 11B, which is appointment of safe routes to schools representative. Oh, my computer just shut down. So in your board packet, you will see a long description of this amazing grant that we've received to plan safe routes to school for our students. Part of this, and I'm going to lean on Kathy because Kathy is actually a representative on this committee and has been doing a lion's share of the work in getting this together. So correct me when I'm wrong, because I probably will be. But there is a rapid planning workshop on Tuesday, November 12th from 7:30 to 5. And the request is to have a board member attend and participate in that session. And so the ask is anyone interested or available to participate in an all-day workshop on behalf of this team on November 12th from 7:30 to 5 right here in Rockford. Kathy, anything else that you'd like to add to that?
There is different agenda items going on throughout the day. You could be able to step out and, bring your laptop and work on the side because we're going to have separate committees doing separate things at separate times. But yes, it is an all-day thing. And it could be 7:30 to 5. It could be 7 to 4:30. It's that part, but it is an all-day thing. And the people that have been invited are the Department of Transportation representatives, our planning design representatives, county highway representatives, city representatives, Three Rivers Parks representatives. Who am I missing? Obviously our staff, students, parents, businesses. I'm anticipating, I invited over 70 people, let's put it that way. I'm hoping people can pop in and out all day, but for the board it would be, since we're hosting and we're running it, they would need to be there most of the day, not that you can't pop out. I'm just saying that there are opportunities for you to step out and get something done. But
I'm available.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you
That's
available?
available.
Yeah, I can be there.
Eric's available. Jessica's available.
We only need one,
We
just
only
as long
need
as we
one.
have somebody on the board, so.
Anybody
How's
else?
3?
A little much.
A little much.
You don't have to arm wrestle.
Unless you really, really want it.
You
No,
can
I'll
have
do
it.
it.
Or you could split it in half.
I'll be
Half you
there.
could do morning, half you can do the afternoon if you want to do that.
It's my birthday. I'd rather not.
God, let's go. Yep. I'll do it.
Eric,
Yep.
So Eric would like to do that?
Very good.
All right. And we do need
No.
action. We kind of listed it as an action.
If you
so
want to do action,
We'll
you
just
can, or you
be
can just
nice and
point.
formal about it.
That's
I can appoint it
action.
too. Eric, I'm appointing, but let's just do it as a motion. We're all
You
in
wave
favor
the
and we all
gavel at me
agree.
so
No, I
people
won't wave the gavel at you. So I'll make that motion that Eric represent the board at the Safe Routes to School workshop, which is on November 12th from 7:30 to 5 or thereabouts. And Kathy will make sure that
Yeah, I'll
Eric
keep
knows.
you in the loop.
Yep. So that's my motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thanks, Eric, for doing that. And then at our next meeting on hopefully the 18th, you'll be able to bring an update back to the board on what
Absolutely.
that all went as. So thanks for doing that.
Work session at least.
Yeah, right. So then, yeah. So 11C, IB Advisory Board. Jessica, would you like to present this agenda item since it was your ad?
I've kind of discussed it, but I would like to see that. I do need to ask Matthew, is it every other Monday, what time of the day, and all of that? Would you be able to step forward and just fill us in on that?
Matthew, would you come to the podium real quick?
Thank you, Amy.
The meetings are usually every other Monday, first and third, and we tried to have that third Monday also be the same night as the board meeting, so sometimes some of those board meetings are on like a Wednesday, some of these months, because of MLK in January, and I think President's Day in February. So those are, but I can send you the dates, and the times are 3:15 to 4:15. And location is this room.
Great. 3:15 to 4:15 every other week, essentially on Mondays. is right, except for those exceptions that you noted. Just from a practical perspective, what if a board member couldn't come every time? Would that be a big issue?
No, the format, we had looked at different ways of compensation. And I think I referenced before, we had looked at a stipend. Stipend's tough because there's so many people that are doing so many things, right? We, of the 12 or 13 people that were invited to the first meeting, 5 were there. It's not, I mean, people are just pulled in so many different directions. So what we're looking at is at these meetings, this is a chance for a project team to dive in, and whoever's there, we have our agenda set ahead of time. It's a tight agenda. It's 2 or 3 project teams, and that's what they're working on. So whoever's here is
working. All right. Go ahead, Kevin.
I have just a little bit of concern about the appointment onto the IB advisory committee. My concern is just because I don't want board work to go into the school work, right? There's a spot where there's a healthy boundary, I think, on where we can do some things at district levels and look at district spot. I would want to have a lot of caution for whoever that board member is that goes there, that the role is to watch, see. The hard thing is about whether we like it or not, we're the bosses of the district, right? That's what we've been elected to kind of do and work with the superintendent to do that. And I want to make sure we're really cautious there, and that if everything ever gets uncomfortable or whatever, that there's just a separate piece there, and not that it would be naturally would go to a spot. I just think if things go awry or whatever, there's opportunity there for that to get weird sometimes, and I don't want it to get weird.
Thank you. Matthew or Rhonda, do you have any, I don't want to put you on the spot, so any thoughts on that or anything that you think about that? Because I agree with that. I mean, I completely agree. So, our job is to stay at the altitude of the board and to not get into the weeds of how things go and all of that. And so I echo Kevin's caution in that. I think and this is where I don't know, are there similar roles that board members play on our curriculum advisory committee? And in what way does that board member operate and act? And how do they stay at that right level? And I think, thank you for calling that out, because I think that is, we all need to be eyes wide open and laser clear on what this means. So thank you, Rhonda. I'm going to maybe turn it over to you real quick.
Sure. As I'm looking at your other board committee assignments, I was trying to look for something that would be similar. And I'm looking at like number 11, the District Staff Development Committee. Are there not teachers on that committee? Are we not?
Yep.
Yep. The difference is, the difference would be the time on task it's just a lot of, and I don't really know what happens at those meetings, but that's my thing. If they're meeting every other week and doing that, there's a lot of work being done on that I would never want to be the board position usurp the authority of someone that's leading that.
Rhonda.
Sure. Well, I have 2 thoughts. One, I'm going to maybe ask Kevin to respond to, because Kevin, could you?
Sure.
Yep. Kevin, could you come to the podium, please? Thank you.
You serve on the District Staff Development Committee, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you serve on the IB Advisory Board.
Right.
Can you speak to the similarities or the differences in terms of the composition and the type of work that happens at both? Because that's getting to your point, correct?
Well, I would go more towards the curriculum advisory, which is coming up.
Right.
It will be a look at curriculum kind of at a very high level as an advisory
position to make community and to give community input, but not to make decisions necessarily, whereas this gets into the weeds. This was very specific work around some policies and some language that was very specific to implementing, some of our grading policies, some of our mission, some of the vision statements, stuff like that. So it's a different level of contact.
Okay. Then my second statement or comment is, Matthew just shared that we meet every other week for 1 hour. We're not going too deep every other week for 1 hour. I mean, you went to the training. I mean, the scope of the work is not happening every other week within that hour. So just given that, it's here. It's not deep in the weeds.
Right, and I would say too, as I've worked with JC to redevelop that staff development committee, we're looking at, like, again, an advisory role.
Correct.
Not as opposed to, like you said, getting deeper into the weeds and making some other.
So you see a distinction between the IB and the curriculum there.
Yeah. And actually, I think the curriculum advisory will feed somewhat into what's happening with IB2.
I'm not going to. My concern is, I mean, if we do that, we just have to be aware, right, and monitor kind of our role in that. I think it's a more increased of risk happening on that group than any other thing that we're doing.
Beth, did you have something to add?
Well, I was just reflecting back at some of the messaging I heard from the training in Atlanta, and I think we were the only 3 school board people there, and so we were kind of celebrities, to say the least. Anyways,
we were actually, it was kind of crazy.
Yes, I didn't sign any autographs, so sorry. Anyways, they did recommend, this is kind of how we got the idea, that because of thinking of it could be in collaboration with Matthew and the other people involved, how can the board help? Because I kept thinking teachers are going to need more time and more money, and that is where we come in. And so how do we support it? Not to get in the weeds. Like I said, I shut down when it got into some of the weeds of unit planning, but I kept saying, all right, we have to support the teachers, support the administrators, and with time and resources and funding. So how can we
sustainable?
And yes, and so being there just to bring that back to this board, to here. That's the only thing I was thinking when we kind of, it's impressive how much has to be done, and I want to be fully supportive. And how can we facilitate that? So if it's not going every meeting, maybe it's once a month, or I just.
Okay.
Yep, Matthew. Yep.
Well, and there's another piece of this is I don't know, and I'm not saying it would be a negative, I don't know how it would impact the conversations that do take place at this meetings if there is a board member present or engaged. And we only talk about, we only are going to have as many items as project teams that we can support. So last time we focused on the mission statement. I mean, we were wordsmithing our mission statement, so that's about as in-depth as you can get. It's not a ton of breadth, but it is depth. If it's a briefing is something that you want, and I guess, just as you said, you were kind of 3 unicorns in Atlanta that board members aren't often at this level. I've also never heard of board members being on an IB advisory committee. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but I have not heard that. I could reach out to our fellow MNIB schools and get information and report that back to you. If that's something you want me to explore, because I just don't know how it would impact our work together.
Rhonda, do you have anything else?
I need to echo what Kevin said. I've been pondering this since it came up, and it just, yes, the intent of help and good is there, but to be a part of the board and be an appointed person to this committee, to be an arm of the board in that committee, when policy and procedures are going to be established, it just, it crosses that threshold a touch in my eyes. It's just one person, but we're governance, right? That's what our goal and our charge is, right? So let the dirty work go to the people that need to do that. So, not that it's dirty work, but
The detailed
The
work.
nitty-gritty.
Let's say the
I-
detailed work.
I understand what you're saying.
Mike Rowe or whatever his name is.
Sure.
The detailed work.
And that might just come into then the way, instead of having someone at the meeting, that just would add another bullet point to your report then, is just giving us the overview. The committee met last Monday and this is agenda item, check.
Well, and to echo what we heard tonight is points of celebration. We accomplished number 42, 46, 49,
Yes.
92. They've gone to green.
Nice.
Yes. And so I think that, in a nutshell, my point of view is now, instead of actually being at the meeting, we could just have more transparency of what happened at the meeting.
Sure.
All right, well, I don't think, we don't have a motion
No motion.
on the floor. I would, so,
Okay.
since there's no motion on the floor, we'll move on. I'm just going to say, Jessica, thank you for raising this as a conversation. Board, thank you for everybody for weighing in on it. In addition to our administrative leaders for bringing your perspective.
Yes.
I think this is one of those situations where I think you heard it earlier, we want to support this in whatever way makes sense. And so we're here to do that. And so moving on to the next agenda item. Great.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, we have completed all action items of the night. Thank you for your patience in that. All right, next we'll go on to our board and committee updates. Jessica, do you want to start, or who would like to start?
Someone else start one.
Rating.
We start at rating.
Oh, we'll wait for Rhonda to come back. Thank you, everybody. Thank
I
you.
missed my chance to offer a handout. Am I too late for that?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You hung in here the whole time. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Other ones I think we should pass out too. They're back in.
Yeah, Deb left a sheet at the back too.
Evergreen.
So,
Yep. So we'll make sure.
I'll scan them in and put it as an extra. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
yeah, I can start. I don't have a whole lot other than the schedule for the Community Education Advisory Board came out and has been added to my calendar. So those meetings will be recommencing here shortly. So that'll be exciting. Getting re-engaged with that committee. So. Other than that, I have no other committee-related updates.
Thank you.
Beth?
All right, Jessica, I wasn't sure if you were going to bring it, but I did. We went to the C regional meeting, and so I brought the papers to give to Kathy.
The C things, I'll need a copy.
Okay, and so that was the regional meeting in Decatur, I think.
Yes, okay.
Yes, thank you. She went to the other meeting that's not regional. Right. I'll let her talk about that one. So it was pretty much just talked about not enough money, what are we gonna do about it, and what's the direction for the year, basically.
There was a lot of talk about what's happening at the state level regarding education and funding, and it's not a funding year, so
Yeah.
what's the talk and what are they doing?
So, and kudos for us that we're not on this list of people that are having a referendum, so I'm happy to be left off of this list. That's a good thing. I'll pass these off to Kathy. And a lot to share about MYP, and it's marvelous and fabulous. I just haven't had a chance to really wrap my brain around it, so to come at I just want you all to know that it was amazing. And I'm so happy that I got to go. I will admit by 3 I was kind of shut down, but and it went until 3:30. So if it happened in the last 30 minutes, my brain didn't take it in, but it was really good. And can I address to the board what some of those public comments? I just want to say
I don't think
I just want I don't want to just personally what they said.
You can't.
Okay.
You can't.
I won't
comment on
Can I?
their
I won't comment on them. Can I comment on what Kathy shared with us and the changes that are made to MSBA? No. Like all this dyslexia
This is our report
statutes.
time.
No. Okay. Because
You mean the piece that they handed out that we're gonna reflect, but we can't reflect on it yet?
no, Kathy, we voted yes
policy.
to assume the policy, the
We
dyslexia
can't talk about
policy.
it now, though.
Okay.
That would have been in the agenda
Policy
item on the
section.
policy.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I wish, but no.
Okay. It was nothing bad.
Yeah, I know.
It's good stuff. So.
Yeah, good.
All right, then I don't have anything else to share.
All right.
All right, so got to sit through, I don't remember if I shared this, got to be the board representative in the audit. There were a lot of numbers on the page, right? So talk through those things with the audit. Participated, as a passive participant, a listener in the MSBA World's Best Workforce legislation review about what school districts need to do. Good thing to hear that all the things that Kevin has presented in his World's Best Workforce report seem to be right on board with that. Also, last week did board self-evaluation, WebEx, with MSBA as well. Some good thoughts about making sure you're clear and concise with your communication and, be respectful of the people that are giving up time to be in the meeting and get through the meeting in a timely manner. I thought that was a good thing for me to think about. And those are, well, got to drive the golf cart a couple times, got to take the Anderson family up and down the hill. Yeah.
Good times.
Let a 5-year-old, no, I'm just kidding. I'm in.
All right. Okay, I suppose I need my mic. So my board report for October, on September 21st, I went to the C meeting in place of Beth, and you will see in the board packet there is the C monthly meeting there. It's a presentation and it's a public opinion. They go out and do this, and you can see it tracking from 2017, 2018, 2019, and with some very interesting data that was shared. So feel free to go through it. If you have questions, let me know. I attended my Masico meeting. We were able to tour the facility in Buffalo. So that was pretty cool. I went to the C regional meeting with Beth, and she's given the paperwork from that. The IBCP training in Georgia, and I've shared, that was amazing. I really want to put something together, hoping that possibly to be able to give that information out to the board at a board level, maybe at the December work session, if that would be okay. Maybe being able to present just kind of to give everybody kind of a little bit of what CP is, just so that that's kind of the purpose of us going there, is to be able to give that information out to the whole board from a board perspective, which was interesting being there from a board perspective. Today I attended a funeral for a former Rockford teacher. It's a very good friend when she worked here, and got to see a lot of former Rockford teachers, retired teachers. An administrator was also there, a retired administrator was there. It was really neat to see all those people honoring her memory. We had the board work session, and then I've had the opportunity to ref some 7th grade volleyball. And so that's been really fun. And kudos to our 7th grade coach. I think she's done a great job. Those girls represent Rockford. Wow. I was just so impressed with how our girls treat one another and treat visiting teams, and I was really proud to be like, yeah, this is Rockford, welcome to Rockford. And it was really cool. We have some really great people on staff here, so it was a fun opportunity, and I get to still be a part of a sport I love, so it's pretty cool. So very fun. I just wanted to share that with our board, that little tidbit that I get to be a part of. So nice.
All right, Mr. Campbell.
So my big ones were the IB training. That was great. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of information. It's a big deal. I was surprised. My takeaway is how limited the number of people are who walk away with a diploma from the DP, like from a diploma program, diploma. I think we're set up pretty well to succeed. Having the middle years program is a big deal. That feeding into it is a very big deal, and people pointed to the success of that. A couple things I learned were the way that people were running both AP and IB and that in their schools, which was confusing as I was listening, and also confusing to them, right? So I love our approach so far of, here we go, IB for all, and we're going to have the CP, the MYP, and the BP. I think that is all good. I think another thing that was I think it's going to be a big conversation is grading. Grading in the IB program is unique, and I think our district has a ways to go in grading, right? And so there's nothing like grading a paper knowing that you have to hand it to someone else and they're going to grade it too. And if you're more than 2 points away, then it goes to review. That's a big deal, right? So the accountability that's going to be there for our professionals are just there. Other than that, it's the planning of the board session. And then I'm going to say this, and cut me off if it's not. This morning I had the opportunity to sit down with our administrators and leaders in our district, and we had some really good leaders. So it was a pleasure to be able to sit down with that group this morning and hear just, you know, we're a great district. We have a great staff, and we're prepared for a lot of things. So that was a good meeting this morning.
Good.
And then one more thing. We have an awesome board chair.
Yes.
And so I've got to see a lot of that, and it's an awesome thing. And to be able to work with Amy, it's been really good just watching you lead that. So
Wow.
Nice job.
Second that.
Yes, thank you.
Third.
Fourth.
All right.
All right,
You?
let's go.
Cool. Mr. Anderson.
I gave
You
my
have to
update.
go first.
There wasn't much to it, I don't blame you.
All right. Sorry about that.
I know how I felt.
Yeah. So next is my updates. So my updates are. So I went to North Suburban the September the 18th, and you know, and I inkled at this, I think, at our work session, but it's pretty impressive actually when you really look at the draw of the Northwest Suburban Integration District and the draw to Rockford. We receive, and this is in our board packet, so I will let you know, well, not in this board packet, but in my Northwest Suburban. I'm going to give you a copy of this part to add to our supplemental data, Kathy. But Rockford has 276 students that come from other districts to ours by virtue of our magnet programs. And that is, I would say, incredible, very impressive. Yes, there are, when I look at our high school numbers for this year, 82 kids are designated related to the IB
Awesome.
Program.
So those are ninth graders that stayed?
Ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th, so
Okay.
all of them can stay
That
because
maybe
we're a
wouldn't
candidate
have
school.
stayed
Mhm.
otherwise. That's amazing.
Yep.
I mean, some of them might have stayed, but some of them might not.
Mhm.
Awesome.
They can, yeah, yep. And then 5th through 8th, 105 students, and elementary arts, 89. So through all of that, through all the hard work of the leaders that put together the grant, as well as this board and supporting it, being able to have a magnet attraction really does pay off. When you'll see this, this is continuing plus new, so this is all, so this isn't just new enrollments, but this is all students that are attributed to a magnet status in our district. But as you look through some of the other districts, you'll see a lot of inter-district movement, not into district movement, if that makes sense.
So
it
like
might
in
be-
Anoka-Hennep, and they go
from one to the other, but they're still within that district. Whereas in Rockford, this really has become a significant draw, mostly from neighboring communities. So I'll give this to Kathy, and she can put into our board just supplemental data. But this was probably one of the most helpful reports I've seen in a while. The way our administrator, our executive director, put it together, because it's continuing plus new. Sometimes we just look at new, isn't it? You don't see the magnitude, and this time she did continuing plus new, which I found incredibly helpful. I would also say that that is a really fun board to be a part of when we get together every other month. And just, are able to celebrate our celebrations within each district, and then of course do our board work. I attended the AMSD on October the 4th. My big update was North Suburban this month, so I won't belabor the discussion there. Agenda prep on the 15th, and then equally I met with our district leaders this morning, and I echo what Kevin said. We've got an amazing team of administrators and leaders in our district, and I was just continued to be impressed, and I think we saw a lot of that tonight too, as we do each month. So those are my updates. Rhonda, do you have any updates that you would like to give at this point in time?
103 hours is the
not necessarily update, just a couple of comments. Well, first of all, I had to go full circle here, and I am humbled and honored to be given this opportunity to step in, to sit in this seat. That you feel that that you're confident that I can fulfill the responsibilities of the position. So thank you for that. And I'll work like crazy. I mean, once we've worked together for some time or a short time, you'll come to realize that the decisions that I make, I always look out for what's best for our kids. I love our teachers, I love our counselors, I love my principal colleagues, but I always start with what's best for kids, because I've always said if you do what's best for kids, you can always defend it. If you do what's best for kids, you can always defend it. Just a comment on the MYP, because I know you went to MYP. One of the things that we have to remember is that MYP is a 5-year program. We have the kids for 2. And so other school districts that will have, MYP in their middle schools and then in the high schools, they'll start those personal projects and those service projects. They start them in middle school, and then there's a culminating project then that happens in 10th grade. But we have a heavy lift on, we only have them for the 2 years. And so that's one of the things that the advisory committee is going to have to look at, is how can we maybe reach down into the middle school a little bit to start planting those seeds, not necessarily implementing it or doing anything with it, but just planting seeds with kids on what their personal project might be once they hit the high school.
I'm the one that went to MYP, and I started thinking the same thing, and that was
Yeah.
going to come up in my, when I was able to present to the board, that, and I don't even remember all the vocabulary, but just starting to use the key concepts and those learning words. Like, I'm sorry, you guys, I don't remember it all, but there's
the profiles.
Yes, some of that stuff we can start in our middle school, so that when they come to the high school, it's not new learning. Like it is for me right now.
Right.
That and I think even just that becomes a vernacular of our district. We start to bring in some of this speak, so it isn't so new. So yes, I concur with what you said.
Yeah. Meeting this morning, I too want to echo that my colleagues were so supportive. There's a few of them that work in this building, and of course our paths crossed throughout the day, and just real support from my colleagues. So felt good about that. And then last, I noticed on the letter, I'm not a doctor. I play one at board meetings. No, I'm just kidding. No, I started my doctorate program several years ago.
Okay.
And
are you like me? Are you ABD? All but dissertation?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, we have it.
I did all my coursework. And then I had grandkids.
We should
and it
be
was just like,
dissertation buddies, I think. We need to buddy up and like be each
and
other's.
and finish that off.
Yes.
Probably. But again, thank you.
Great.
Amy, I forgot one thing.
Yeah, for sure.
CIS to me is something that I've been thinking about a lot, because my kids they miss the whole IB opportunity, and I don't want them to miss out on the opportunity of CIS, and we've been told that it's going away, and so I've done some research, and it actually, in Minnesota, there's been an extension to the fall of 2022 for those requirements. And so I've been doing some research in it, and I did reach out to St. Cloud State, who we have a few of our classes are through St. Cloud State. And I was talking to the person who's kind of head of it's called S2S, Senior to Sophomore Program. And was talking to her, and she was explaining to me that they're working very, very hard there to find ways to make it possible to keep these CIS classes beyond the fall of 2022 to meet the requirements, and how they're going to meet the requirements, what they're going to do. But they have put an advisory board in place for this, and they have many people on the advisory board. And she goes, well, actually, our first meeting is until December. Would you be interested in being a part of this, to just see those steps in that? And I just wanted to
talk about that.
And there's a broad spectrum of people who are a part of this, from college professors to parents, to high school teachers, to administrators at the college level. And she just said it would be nice to have representation from more of their schools that they are partnered with. So.
Got it. So you mentioned there's a large group of people that would be part of the advisory group.
Yeah, let's see. I have.
Of which you mentioned one as parents too. So I guess my question is, in the advisory group, would you be acting as a board member, or would you be acting as a parent?
That's what I am asking of the board.
Okay.
So just point of order a little bit.
Yeah.
I know it says board updates. I think this is getting to a spot where we might be trying to get some action on it.
Had asked this. earlier where this should be.
Mm-hmm. It's not really an action, so we did talk about it. It's not really an action, it's not really a thing, it's not really a something. It's something that Jessica's researched outside of a meeting, and so wants to bring it to the attention of her colleagues.
And if she goes as a parent, I mean.
And I can go as a parent,
absolutely. How to approach this.
Okay.
And so that's why I think that's what this conversation is about. And less about it being a agent of. I think.
Right.
So I think you've been approached, is what you're saying. You've been approached to join as a advisory group member, and this is with St. Cloud State.
Yeah.
And so I think the question is there any concern from this board in that, and or how should Jessica present herself? I think that's probably the bigger question.
Yeah, that's.
Are the decisions final about the phase out of particular courses for college credit in the high school?
And that's what we can't talk about right now.
Okay.
Because that would be like a real conversation about.
We've had nothing brought to the board to do that.
Right.
No.
Yeah, and I didn't think so, like unless I was missing something. So I would say, short of having that information, it would be difficult to say, yeah, go attend as a board member, right, without knowing what we were doing. I think having the insight of a parent that has a side benefit of being a board member, when that conversation does come up, you can inform us a heck of a lot better. That would be my thoughts.
As a parent.
Yeah.
And this isn't a committee that's already set up? Is that they're in the planning process?
Well, like here, these are all the people.
Long list.
That they've reached out to come to the
Say
meeting.
we'd like to have a meeting to talk about. I mean, I would say go as a parent, and then you could come back and report and say this is their premise, this is their charge and what they're trying to do, and then as a board we can make our, and are
If we
there other
wanna have-
board representatives inside of this, and are they requesting true board representation?
Right. And then maybe by then we would have more information to backfill that.
No problem. Rhonda, any concerns or insight?
No, not insight. I mean, going back to something that you said just a bit ago about, going all in with IB. What we don't want to do is feed something that we're trying to sunset. That would, from what I heard.
But are we trying to sunset that?
And that's a conversation we can't have right now.
Right.
So.
Because I've had mixed messages on that as well.
Sure.
So maybe that's a future conversation that we should bring to and we can bring that to our board leadership discussion with you as we set a future agenda to see if that specific topic around CIS and all of that, if we should talk about that at the board level at this point in time. Because yes, there are conversations in the communities about that.
There
Yes, I
are
agree.
lots of misinformation that is being put out to our community.
Yep.
And so to have, I just feel like we need to be able to wrap around what is the actual factual information with a program before we.
So I hear that's
charge
what
ahead.
Escalating is that, and heard. And then the second is you have an opportunity to serve in a advisory capacity related to CIS. And at this point in time, there's nothing has been brought to this board formally about the CIS program and what the plans are. So I would not appoint because this is not an action, so I think I could appoint
a parent.
At this point in time.
That is just fine. I will reach out to her.
Yep. Great. Thank you for asking that. And I think that's where, I'll just have a little sidebar right now because it is in our updates. But that's where as board members, and as parents, we have this opportunity where we get pinged by a variety of different scenarios. And Jessica, I really appreciate you bringing this forward as a, hey, how should I show up? What,
Like, I could
what
just
hat
accept
should I
and
wear?
go,
You could have
and
just,
I
and then.
didn't feel right in doing that.
Exactly. So I really appreciate you bringing this forward as a, what should I do about this? You know, I've been kind of looking into this stuff on my own as a parent and as a engaged community member, and I have this opportunity, so how should I show up, or, you know, what should that look like? So thank you for that, and then we'll just talk, you know,
Yeah.
in greater detail at a future date.
Well, but that conversation will need to happen sooner than later,
Yeah.
because one of the things that we were just talking about this morning, we being Matthew and I, is number one, about those 138 steps. And getting some clarity on where we are in terms of, I told my, even if we just code them as in which ones are done.
Yes.
Like green, good to go. Which ones are yellow, we're in progress, and red. Like we haven't even started it yet.
And that's what I would think we were pointing to, like, just give us an overview.
Right. And so I actually had that conversation this morning. And then the second piece, as it relates to the CIS, the other ask from me, just today, it's so funny how things happen for a reason, was the scope and sequence. I asked for out to 22, 23.
Okay.
Because it does matter in terms of how we're even talking to kids now about their high school career. If they're planning to be an IB student, those kids need to start planning what their high school career is going to look like so they can get all those pieces accomplished by their senior year. So we would have to have that conversation sooner or later in terms of what those offerings are their junior and senior years, because it is then competing against IB, if you will.
And it has to start now for those ninth graders so they can plan ahead, and it almost feeds into like 7th and 8th graders, and that's what I mean. I don't know how we can have MYP in 9th and 10th grade without incorporating some of it into our 7th and 8th graders.
There has to
Because we're not doing them justice, and because you start to think about some of those really, like, go-get-em students.
It's the language acquisition that has to start in middle school.
And you start
Otherwise, they don't have 5 years to get to.
Yes, exactly.
It has to start.
And though you start planning your math and your all those things, it's a big
It's a
undertaking.
lot.
And that's why I think just checking those boxes off will make me have less anxiety. Because it's a lot.
Great.
Well, given that you're kind of a big deal now.
Yeah,
All right.
we're the three of us are a big deal.
You're gonna say something.
I was gonna try to make a motion.
I was just gonna call for that. So we've done our board updates, we've done our, and we need to assign recognition. So Kathy, I will go back to my agenda here. Shoot.
3, 4.
There's 12 people.
So
I'll do, and darling.
the Reams reader, oh, sorry. You did the best prep, Garrett?
Yeah, I know,
Okay.
with the family.
Great.
Tell me about this.
Yeah, that's what
And then, oh, so right now what we do is we take a look at the recognition that's read, and then each board member decides who they're going to write a note to that was recognized. So we write a personal note, and then Kathy's put together certificates for each of the people that are recognized that accompany the handwritten letter.
That's sweet.
Yeah, and so it's just been a practice that's been going on for some time, and then recently we added the certificate because sometimes you all decide to recognize like the entire web crew, and it's hard to write a whole bunch of handwritten notes to everybody, so we do that plus.
Do the Reams reader.
Yeah. Brady, you got.
Oh, you already got that one?
Yep.
Okay, I do the
Are
cycling.
you breaking up the team, or are you doing one cycling team?
Whatever she would like to do.
Look at that.
Can we do one cycling team?
Blank.
With then the certificate?
Then they get
It's adorable.
Yep.
Picture of the midnight sky.
One cycling team to the.
Going out on me.
to Brady,
Brady.
What's that?
and
So-
he'll write it to the team.
Write one notebook
One to
per
the team.
and then
Dear
Pet
cycling
gets
team.
certificates to all of the
Yes.
kids.
Yep. That would
And then
make
boys
way more
soccer.
sense.
I've already written one to Miguel, so.
I got Miguel.
You got Miguel?
Yeah, you've got in there.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great, yeah.
So
We had the writer
Love it.
for elementary, or the reader.
The reader, I thought somebody did.
I thought so too.
Is that the
but
middle
could be
school?
confusing.
Yes.
It's just-
Yeah.
That's his
My brain shuts off.
Dressed up for him, isn't it?
That's great.
I showed Jessica, but she'll start
Love
crying.
it.
Just a little.
Love it, love it, love it.
Especially right now, I'm tired.
Wait a minute. So Eric, who are you writing to?
And Darling.
Jessica, do you have anybody yet?
Yep.
She's got McGow. You got the cycling team.
Oh, sorry, Beth was writing on something else.
Yes.
All right.
When we went
Great.
over for the.
Is that all four? We got it.
All right, great.
Good.
Thanks, everybody. So recognition has been assigned. So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Can I have a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any further comment? Pending no further comment, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, 9:59 PM.